Chapter 60. This was a sorry figure. His clothes were tattered and his hair was disheveled. His clothes were stained with dried blood, and his original color could no longer be seen. His whole body emitted a thick smell of blood. When the figure reached the valley, he slowed down and walked step by step towards the valley. The earth trembled as the figure took a step forward. A sciention pressure was released from his body, and the oppressive aura made it difficult for the people in the valley to breathe. It's Senior Brother Su Yen. It's actually Senior Brother Su Yen. Senior Brother Su Yen, come to us. It's Su Yen. He actually broke through to the sciention realm. It's rumored that Zichen killed 9 of the 10 disciples of the inner sect. Now that Su Yen has broken through, Zichen is finished. Exclamations sounded in the valley. Some of the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor shouted for Su Yen to come over, their eyes filled with joy. Zichen knew that things weren't going well, and protected Lin Shui and Su Mengyao behind him. Because at this moment, Su Yen turned his head and saw Zichen with his blood-red eyes. Zichen. Su Yan's eyes were spitting fire. He walked over step by step. A sciention pressure appeared, and the earth began to tremble. Not good. I don't know what kind of luck this Su Yen has, but he actually broke through. The usually calm Miao Kong had a bitter expression. There was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Today was a disaster. Zhang Haoyan was already standing side by side with Zichen. He knew that today was going to be a fierce battle, and it was very likely to be the last battle of his life. Zhang Haoyan, seeing Zichen, Su Yen naturally saw Zhang Haoyan and Miao Kong. His 3 enemies were all here. A cruel smile appeared on Su Yan's face. What should we do? Su Yan's strength made Liang Guang's face pale. Muyi hesitated, not knowing where to stand at this time. LV Peng quietly said, "Wait and see." The earth trembled and the wind whistled. Everyone in the valley stared at Su Yen. No one spoke. The sciention realm Su Yen brought too much shock to them. Senior Brother Su Yen, come to us. Suddenly, a disciple of the Nimbus martial ancestor shouted loudly. He seemed to recognize Su Yen as the other party actually rushed forward. Humph. Senior apprentice brother Su Yen has already broken through. The 1,000-year-old elixirs here belong to our spirit martial sect. You 2 sects should quickly leave. The disciple walked towards Su Yen with his head held high. He completely did not understand the situation in front of him. Senior Brother Su Yen, there's a 1,000-year-old spiritual herb over there. Only you can get it. The disciple stepped forward and stopped in front of Su Yen. A sudden change occurred. The disheveled Su Yen suddenly turned his head, revealing a pair of blood-red eyes. That disciple's expression changed, and he hastily retreated, shouting, "Senior apprentice brother Su Yen, it's me, Dash," but before he could finish a sentence, he saw Su Yen open his mouth, revealing blood-red teeth. He then charged at him. Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking could be clearly heard. The disciple's neck was bitten off. Fresh blood spurted out and splattered all over Su Yan's face. At this moment, Su Yan's face was covered in blood, making him look even more terrifying. He then chewed twice and swallowed the flesh that he had bitten off. Such a bloody scene caused some of the more timid female disciples to scream. Some of them could not help but vomit. Zichen's hair stood on end as he saw this scene. His stomach had already started to churn. "Haha, Zichen." Su Yen laughed like a wild beast. He breathed heavily, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. With a crash, the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor who were surrounding Zichen immediately scattered and hid. They could already tell that Su Yan's target was Zichen. Zichen killed one of the 9 disciples of the inner sect. Now the other party is here for revenge. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Let's quickly retreat. According to the rules of the Nimbus martial ancestor, conflicts should be resolved by themselves. We cannot interfere. Some of the disciples quickly retreated and at the same time found an excuse for themselves to leave. In an instant, there were only a few people left beside Zichen. Su Mengyao, Lin Shui, Zhang Haotian, Miao Kong, Lu Peng, Liang Guang, and Mui did not leave. You guys go. This has nothing to do with you. Shui Er and Mengyao quickly leave. Su Yan walked over step by step. Zichen felt the pressure increasing and said in a deep voice, "No, we won't leave." The two shook their heads. Their eyes were firm and they wanted to fight side by side. "Go, quickly leave," Zichen shouted. Su Yan's tyrannical aura was too terrifying. It was far beyond that of an ordinary Xiantian master. He looked more like a Xiantian beast and gave Zichen a lot of pressure. Su Yan's eyes became even redder. His mind was filled with the scenes of the inner disciples dying. Fragments kept changing in his mind, and finally, the scene of a vicious beast eating a human appeared. Su Yan roared and shouted, "Zichen, I will eat you." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yan flew towards Zichen. The aura around his body surged like a demonic beast rolling towards Zichen. Thunderbolt finger. A cold light flashed in Zichen's eyes. His finger suddenly pointed forward. A silver light flashed and a winding thunder appeared, bringing with it the tyrannical power of thunder. Sky Tyrant Fist. Zhang Haotian clenched his fists and punched out a powerful fist. The fist wind whistled and the aura surged. "Ha ha!" Su Yan laughed sinisterly and sent out two palms towards the two. His Xiantian aura rippled and a terrifying pressure wreaked havoc. Boom! Boom! As the palms fell, the thunder exploded and disappeared. The Sky Tyrant Fist was also repelled. Zichen and Zhang Haotian, the two geniuses' joint attack, were instantly broken. At the same time, the two figures were also sent flying. This was an extremely shocking scene. Zichen's thunder was already very terrifying, and Zhang Haotian's Sky Tyrant Fist was also very overbearing. With the two of them joining forces, even Mui and the others would be defeated. But against the Xiantian realm Su Yan, they were actually sent flying in one strike. The energy generated by the qi wreaked havoc, and the wind blew against Su Yan's long hair, revealing a pair of incomparably cruel, blood-red eyes. In those eyes there was no reason to speak of, only a cruel, killing intent. After Zichen was sent flying, Su Yan's eyes fell on Lin Shui and Su Mengyao. If he was conscious, he would naturally be somewhat afraid of Su Mengyao. But now he was half human, half beast. He no longer had any scruples and rushed towards the two. "Get lost!" Su Mengyao lightly shouted. 9th level Zhen Qi surged, and the Xiantian realm battle skill, Spirit Snake Dance, appeared. Like a white spirit snake, it rushed towards Su Yan. Slap! Su Yan didn't dodge. Instead, he struck back with a palm. Under the powerful force, the white spirit snake was sent flying back. It struck Su Mingyao's chest and sent her flying. Lin Shui's attack only now appeared. Tens of thousands of palm imprints appeared in midair, but they were no match for Su Yan's palm. With a single palm strike, Lin Shui was sent flying back. A line of blood appeared in midair. Lin Shui was the weakest, and she was the most injured. Su Yan had already gone mad. There were only two beautiful figures in his eyes, as well as endless hatred. His figure flashed, and he rushed towards Lin Shui. "Su Yan, get lost!" Zichen, who was sent flying, had already caught up. With a loud shout, his whole body emitted rays of silver light. Like a cannonball, he rushed towards Su Yan. Boom! The two of them collided with a loud bang. After that, the silver light around Zichen shattered. It was as if he had collided with a small mountain, and he was bounced back. A line of blood streaked across the sky. Zichen was also injured. Whoosh! Zhang Haotian slashed down with his long saber. A streak of saber light flashed, and it fell towards Su Yan's head. Su Yan raised his hand. His right hand formed a fist, and he punched towards the saber light. Crack! The saber light shattered, and so did the long saber. At this moment, Miao Kong had already silently appeared behind Su Yan. Then he kicked toward Su Yan's butt. However, in that instant, an unparalleled aura erupted from Su Yan's body. Miao Kong's attack didn't injure Su Yan in the slightest. Instead, he was sent flying. 1 against 5, Su Yan won. This was an extremely shocking scene. Everyone finally felt the power of a Xiantian cultivator. Huff, huff! Su Yan panted loudly. Like a demonic beast, he glared at Lin Shui and growled, "Ziqin, I'll let you see how I'll kill your friends." He was sometimes clear-headed and sometimes crazy. However, Su Yan didn't forget about revenge. Ziqin rushed toward Su Yan. Zhang Haotian did the same. Su Mengyao also appeared. However, even with the 3 of them joining forces, they still couldn't do anything to Su Yan. He was extremely terrifying at the Xiantian realm. Flowing light strike. Ziqin's strongest attack couldn't break through Su Yan's defense. It was blocked by Su Yan's Xiantian Jinqi. Then he suffered a heavy blow to his chest. He vomited blood and was sent flying. "Ziqin!" Lin Shui exclaimed. Everyone was sent flying. Each of them was seriously injured. Su Yan rushed towards Lin Shui with bloodshot eyes. Everyone was shocked. In the distance, Ziqin was furious and desperate. After several exchanges, he was seriously injured. At this moment, he couldn't fight anymore. Zhang Haotian was also in a similar situation. "No, Su Yan, come at me if you have the ability. You trash, kill me if you have the ability." Ziqin roared. His eyes were full of unwillingness. "Your brothers were killed by me. They deserve to be killed. I'll kill them one by one." Su Yan's body trembled. He looked at Ziqin. In his crazy eyes, there seemed to be a trace of sobriety. He grinned and said to Ziqin, "Don't worry, you will die. In front of everyone, I will kill Lin Shui and Su Mengyao. I will let you know what despair is." Su Yan grinned. At this moment, he was clearly sober. Ziqin slowly got up and rushed towards Su Yan again. However, he was sent flying again by a slap. At the same time, he arrived in front of Lin Shui. Lin Shui retreated in horror. She was injured. "Huh?" Su Yan grinned and rushed towards Lin Shui. "Pung!" Suddenly, a loud sound rang out. Nobody knew when, but Lu Peng, who hadn't moved at all, had arrived beside Su Yan. With a sneak attack, Su Yan was repelled. "Junior brother." Lu Peng's action startled Mui and the others, causing them to cry out in alarm. "Summon all of the 10th floor disciples of the Black Tortoise sect to kill Su Yan. This person has already gone mad. If he kills Ziqin now, it might be us next." Lu Peng said in a deep voice without even turning his head. Chapter 61. The golden palm was the strongest battle skill of the black martial ancestor. With one strike, the palm print emitted a little golden light. It was as if the golden palm print had crashed down. If it was any other time, the golden palm print would have attracted a lot of attention. But today, LV Peng's opponent was the Xiantian realm Su Yan. Such an attack that could threaten a 10th level Zhenqi master was unable to do anything to a Xiantian realm master. Boom! With a loud bang, the golden palm print was shattered and LV Peng was sent flying. Drops of blood dripped from the palm print. "Attack!" Mui and the others were still in a daze when LV Peng roared. Swish! Swish! The expressions of the two, who were still hesitating, instantly turned cold. With a tap of their feet, they charged at Su Yan. A surging aura appeared, and 2 rays of light rushed toward Su Yan. Energy exploded instantly. Boom! The 2 sides fought fiercely, and the sound became louder and louder. The heaven and earth spiritual chi in the valley was crazily stirred up. The surrounding cultivators all retreated and stood in the distance to watch the show. LV Peng's words were extremely frightening to them. They did not think that Su Yan would kill the innocent. Some of the disciples who were watching the show were disappointed when they saw LV Peng and the others attack. The disciples of the 10th level of the Black Tortoise sect flashed over and joined the battle. As for the others, they retreated even further. This is the business of the Nimbus martial ancestor. It has nothing to do with us. Quickly retreat. The 10th level Zhen martial ancestor said coldly, "But Zhang Haotian is there." A disciple asked, "Humph." Zhang Haotian offended Senior Ling Qin and Senior Ling Yin. "If we help him, we will be courting death." With a cold snort, the Zhen martial ancestor disciple retreated even further. The disciples dispersed, leaving more space for Su Yan to fight. As for the Nimbus martial ancestor disciples, they retreated first. Boom! The Black martial ancestor sent over a dozen 10th level Zhenqi disciples. Their attacks were very fierce and brought a lot of trouble to Su Yan. Go die. Su Yan was furious. His eyes became even redder, and he lost his mind again. With the Xiantian Qi protecting his body, he did not defend and directly attacked. Bang! Su Yan's palm landed on a disciple's chest. His Xiantian Zhen Qi surged into the disciple's body. In an instant, the disciple was sent flying and coughed up blood. When he landed on the ground, he was no longer breathing. Boom! A disciple's bones were shattered by a single blow. Dang! A sharp blade pierced toward Su Yan's body, but was blocked by Su Yan's Xiantian Jinqi. Unable to break through Su Yan's defense, Su Yan counterattacked, sending the disciple flying. With just one strike, a disciple was sent flying backwards. The difference between the 10th layer and the Xiantian realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. A 10th layer disciple was unable to withstand a single strike from Su Yan. Pung! A disciple was sent flying. Boom! A disciple was knocked back. Dong! A disciple's heart was shattered. In the blink of an eye, 3 out of the 10 disciples at the 10th level of true energy had died. Such a bitter battle caused the distant disciples to feel fear and trepidation. However, no one came to help. Su Yan seemed to have gone crazy, and he charged toward a 10th level disciple, biting down on his neck. With a cracking sound, that disciple died. Huh! Su Yan grinned, lifted his hands, and directly threw the dead disciple away. With a splash, the disciple's body fell into the lake. What are you doing? Su Yan has already gone crazy. If we don't stop him, he will kill everyone. Lu Peng was already injured, and he angrily shouted at the distant spectators. That's just your side of the story. Su Yan was only avenging his brother. Yes, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. This has nothing to do with us. All of this is Zi Qin reaping what he sowed. You should not intervene in this matter. Otherwise, all the disciples will be killed. The disciples of the 2 factions said, but the disciples of the Xian martial ancestor hesitated. Where are the disciples of the Xian martial ancestor? Come with me and kill this bastard. Lu Peng was furious. He despised these cowards who did not understand the situation and were greedy for life. But at this moment, he did not have time to refute them. He could only shout, "Disciples of the Black Turtle sect, kill Su Yan!" Mui also shouted out and launched a series of attacks toward Su Yan. Swoosh! Swoosh! Hearing the shouts of their senior brothers, the disciples of the Xian martial ancestor who were still hesitating also stepped forward, but there were still some who retreated. Don't go, do you want to die? Some of the people who were on good terms with Su Yan pulled back their companions who were about to die. He is a Xiantian master, you are just going to die. Besides, is it worth it for an outer sect disciple? One by one, the disciples were stopped, but there were still some who rushed forward. The chaotic battle continued. Su Yan attacked again and again, seriously injuring those at the 10th level of Zhenqi. As for those at the 8th and 9th levels of Zhenqi, they would die in one hit. At this moment, Everyone's attention was on the battlefield. No one saw that on the mountain peak above the valley, two figures had appeared. Senior brother, this Su Yin is really amazing. He actually broke through to the Xiantian level. In this fierce battle, he seriously injured all the disciples of the Xian martial ancestor. It can be said that he saved us a lot of trouble. Xia Qiu said with a smile. Yes, it was unexpected, but not bad. Are the disciples ready? Ling Chen said indifferently. We are ready. When the berserk beasts riot, it will be time for them to get the elixirs. This plan of killing two birds with one stone is really good. Killing two birds with one stone. Ling Chen's eyes flashed. If Su Yan faces the water monster, it is very likely that he will be able to kill 3 birds with one stone. Haha, senior brother is wise. In the valley, the smell of blood was even thicker. The disciples of the Xian martial ancestor who were desperately rushing forward had already died. But there were still disciples who rushed forward without any regard for their lives. Mui, why are you still not letting go? Are you going to let more of your disciples die for Zichen? Zichen's life is a life, but their lives are not. Is it worth it for an outsider? Sacrificing our own disciples for an outer sect disciple. What kind of attitude is that? In the distance, a disciple had already shouted. Get lost. Mui was furious. He roared. Su Yan has already lost his mind. When the time comes, he will kill everyone. If we don't kill him, we will be the ones to die. You bunch of trash, not only are you not helping, you are also making sarcastic remarks. Mui's nose was almost crooked from anger. These people were really trash. Not only did they not help, but they were also making sarcastic remarks to shake the morale of the disciples. Don't look for excuses. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Su Yan is only looking for Zichen for revenge. Yes, you guys should retreat. A disciple coldly said. Revenge? Is there a need to use the other party's friends for revenge? Are you guys just going to watch them be killed? LV Peng angrily said. These people really did not have a conscience and were crazy. That's because he killed their brothers. This is called an eye for an eye. Some disciples disagreed, but there were also some who lowered their heads in silence. You guys are really beasts. LV Peng was furious. Zichen did not say a word. He rushed forward again and again, striking out a powerful attack. The thunderbolt finger repeatedly appeared, constantly wreaking havoc. Unfortunately, his strength was lower than his opponent by a few realms. Zichen had a powerful combat skill, but he could not display its full power. Su Mingyao's peerless face was covered with frost. Usually, everyone surrounded her like stars surrounding the moon. Today, the feeling of being forgotten made her feel very uncomfortable. Moreover, the words of the disciples had seriously hurt her. Xiantian combat skills continued to appear. Su Mingyao's eyes were already filled with killing intent. Retreat, it's not worth it for an outsider. Their lives are important, but are your lives not important? Zichen, if you are a man, make them leave. Some righteous people could not bear to see these disciples die, so they all shouted, watching their companions die one by one. The disciples of the Xian martial ancestor also hesitated. Then, one by one, they withdrew from the battle. LV Peng and the others were angry and anxious, but there was nothing they could do. No disciple came forward. Peng, boom, dong. Some of the disciples who dared to rush forward were either killed or seriously injured. In the end, there was no one left besides Su Yan. Haha, Su Yan was crazy, but he was still rational. Although he wanted to kill everyone, he did not arrogantly admit it. With a hideous smile, he rushed toward Xuelin, his crazy eyes flashing with a lustful light. Get lost. Zichen was like a cockroach that could not be killed. He jumped up again. His body was covered in his own blood. He was knocked down again and again, but he stood up again and again. His heart was beating violently, providing him with an endless supply of energy. The thunderbolt finger appeared again, but it was shattered again. At the same time, Zichen used his body to block in front of Xuelin. Pung! Su Yan punched out. The powerful force made Zichen retreat a few steps, but he did not fall down. Su Yan punched again, and Zichen retreated again. After 3 consecutive punches, Zichen retreated to Xuelin's side. Everyone was speechless. If someone else was punched, even if they did not die, they would be seriously injured. However, Zichen retreated and did not fall down. Ha! Su Yan laughed and punched again. This time, Zichen could not hold on any longer. He flew back a few meters and landed on the ground. No! He let out an unwilling roar. Zhang Haotian rushed up at this time, but was kicked away by Su Yan. After that, no one could stand up again. Su Yan came to Xuelin's side. With a hideous smile, he reached out to grab Xuelin's blood-stained white robe. Rip! Under the force, the white robe was torn apart, revealing her white skin. Su Yan grinned and reached out again. Another piece of her robe was torn, and her perfect and straight legs were completely exposed. Xuelin's eyes were filled with fear. Her body was trembling, and she looked very pitiful. All around her were the roars of Zichen and the others. In the distance, there was a group of disciples who stood on the side of justice. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. This is Zichen's own fault. Some disciples could not bear it. Some disciples muttered in a low voice, as if they were looking for excuses for their own righteousness. Gulialu. The nearby lake had long been dyed red with blood. The human corpses in the lake slowly sank to the bottom. A ripple appeared in the lake, followed by the formation of a whirlpool. Chapter 62. Zichen's eyes were already bloodshot, but at that moment he was powerless. His body was seriously injured, and the silver energy in his heart was constantly healing his body. However, it was still very slow, and it could not guarantee Zichen's ability to fight. Lin Shue's clothes were no longer intact, and could be attacked by the claws at any time. A few seriously injured disciples staggered forward, but they were all sent flying. At this moment, everyone's attention was on the battlefield, including Ling Fei and Xiaqiu. Enjoy the show. This will be a different kind of hand-to-hand battle. Ling Chen smiled, very relaxed. Xiaqiu nodded in agreement. Everyone's attention was on the battlefield, so no one noticed the changes in the lake. The lake began to ripple and a whirlpool slowly formed. Haha, Zichen, today I will let you feel what despair is. Su Yan was sometimes sober and sometimes crazy. Now that he was sober, he grabbed at Lin Shui with his claws. At this moment, everyone was in despair. Hiss! A roar suddenly sounded, and then the lake water surged. Huge waves surged, and a huge whirlpool of dozens of meters suddenly rose up. At the same time, a huge monster appeared from the center of the whirlpool. It was a triangular head that was almost the size of a house. It was ferocious and terrifying, and its head was covered with palm-sized scales that were tightly connected with each other. A pair of ice-cold triangular eyes stared unwaveringly at Su Yan. A violent Xiantian-level aura swept out from the monster. This was a Xiantian-level demon beast. With a roar, ripples appeared in the air. This was a giant python with a head the size of a house. Its body was dozens of meters long and hundreds of meters away. There were surging waves, like a tail surging at the bottom of the lake. The corpse that fell into the lake, the thick smell of blood, and Su Yan's Xiantian-level aura attracted the other party. The giant python stood upright, creating an endless whirlpool. After it appeared, it cast a large shadow in the valley. After it appeared, the giant python suddenly bit at Su Yan. The giant python brought a strong hurricane with it, and the impact forced everyone to retreat. The appearance of the giant python was too shocking. A sudden change occurred, and the giant python rushed toward Su Yan. Su Yen sensed it and quickly turned around, just in time to see the giant python in front of him, opening its bloody maw to bite him. Su Yan's expression changed drastically. With a tap of his foot, he retreated, but he was still too slow. After a loud sound, one of the giant python's teeth directly pierced through Su Yan's shoulder. The Xiantian qi instantly broke through his defense. The giant python bit through Su Yan's body. Immediately after, its huge head retreated, as if it wanted to bring Su Yan back to the bottom of the lake, where its home ground was. Die for me. The pressure from the python caused Su Yan to wake up completely. With a shout, his right hand emitted a dazzling light. He clenched his fist and punched towards the python's teeth with the might of the Xiantian realm. Crack! With a loud sound, one of the giant python's fangs suddenly broke. At the same time, Su Yan's body fell towards the surface of the lake with a splash. The giant python roared in pain and also fell into the water. The water in the lake surged as if it was boiling, churning and churning unceasingly. Huge waves soared to the sky, creating waves that were hundreds of meters high. Blood stains appeared on the surface of the surging lake. Su Yan and the giant python were currently fighting under the water. Are you all right? Zi Qin staggered to his feet and ran to Lin Shui. At this time, Lin Shui's face was deathly pale. Seeing Zi Qin arrive, she directly threw herself into Zi Chen's arms, sobbing. It's okay, it's okay. Zi Chen endured the pain and gently patted Lin Shui's back to comfort her. Su Mengyao slowly got up and handed over a set of white clothes, indicating for Lin Shui to put it on. Her clothes were already disheveled, revealing a bit of her body. Thank you for your help today. In the future, if you need me, Zi Qin, for anything, I, Zi Qin, will do my best. Lin Shui slowly calmed down. Zi Qin turned to Lu Peng and the others. We're not saving you. We're saving ourselves. Su Yan has already gone crazy and will kill everyone. Lu Peng said, Everyone, quickly recover from your injuries. There might be a fierce battle later. The waves in the lake surged to the sky. The battle between the human and the python was extremely fierce. Su Yan's body would occasionally rush out of the lake to take a breath. At the same time, he wanted to leave the lake, but every time he would be entangled by the python and pulled back into the water. Zi Chen and the others swallowed qi recovery pills and were trying to recover from their injuries. In the distance, a group of disciples was curiously watching the battle on the lake. Some of them had already made up their minds and jumped onto rafts, wanting to take the opportunity to get the Millennium Elixirs. Unfortunately, under a huge wave, the rafts were shattered and the human cultivators fell into the lake. Several disciples died in succession, so no one dared to take advantage of the situation. Get lost! With a loud shout, Su Yan once again rushed out from the bottom of the lake like a cannonball. At this time, his body was covered with bloodstains. In front of the python, Xiantian True Qi was not enough to protect him. Moreover, Su Yan had also consumed some of his true qi in the previous battle. At this moment, he was at a disadvantage against the python. The python let out a roar and jumped out again. Its huge head, which was as big as a house, tried to bite Su Yan. True qi surged around Su Yan's body, and he slapped the python's head. After a loud bang, his body once again rushed out, and this time he flew in an arc towards the shore of the lake. The crowd exclaimed. Obviously, they did not expect Su Yan to use this method to escape. At the same time, some people sighed. Even Su Yan was not a match for the python. There was no hope of getting the Millennium Elixirs. Just as Su Yan was about to cross the lake and land in the valley, 100-meter tall wave suddenly appeared and slammed toward Su Yan. Su Yan raised his hand and shattered the wave, but then the python's tail whipped Su Yan's body. Pa! With a crisp sound, Su Yan was knocked into the lake from afar. Another fierce battle ensued. The lake surged, and huge waves rose to the sky. Su Yan's roar and the python's roar sounded again and again. Blood bloomed on the lake. Some of it was Su Yan's and some of it was the python's. The fierce battle lasted for a full hour. Just as Su Yan had exhausted a lot of his energy and was about to soar into the air, the giant python once again stretched out its head and bit Su Yan's thigh. Moreover, it suddenly pulled downwards. Su Yan struggled and cried for help, but no one paid attention to him. When his body completely sank into the bottom of the lake, the waves gradually disappeared, and the surging lake gradually calmed down. Su Yan did not appear again. Sigh. A sigh came from the crowd. This Su Yan is dead. A Xiantian realm cultivator died just like that. That's right. This beast is worse than a pig or a dog. He really deserves to die. He almost killed Senior's sister Lin Shui. Good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be punished with evil. Even if Su Yan broke through to the Xiantian realm, he will still die. Evil will have evil consequences. After seeing Su Yan die and Zi Qin and the others recover from their injuries, the group of righteous disciples once again sighed softly, their voices much louder than before. Most of them were disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor and walked toward Zi Chen's group. Senior brother Zi Qin is tired. Now that he's injured, we have to protect him. That's right. Those with evil intentions can forget about touching a single strand of senior brother Zi Chen's hair. If anyone dares to touch senior sister Lin Shui and senior sister Su Mengyao, I'll fall out with them. The group of disciples returned one after another, returning with righteousness. Bang! However, at this moment, the lake that had just calmed down suddenly surged, and the huge waves that disappeared appeared again. The python appeared once again. This time its target was the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor who were moving. With a roar, it charged toward the crowd like a bolt of lightning. Blood flowed down from the wound and dripped into the valley along with the lake water. When it retracted, 3 cultivators were bitten by the python and were pulled into the lake. After the battle with Su Yan, the python was injured and consumed a lot of energy. At this moment, it needed food to replenish itself, and humans were the best delicacies for the beast. Ah! Screams came from the crowd. The python's sudden attack had caught everyone off guard. Bang! However, just as the python entered the lake, it appeared again and pounced toward the crowd. This time there were a few screams, and the cultivators were pulled into the lake. The lake surged again. After a few struggles, the cultivators who entered the lake no longer made a sound. Not good. The python is starting to attack the humans. Retreat, the python is showing its power. Senior brother Zi Qin, help us. Senior brother Mui, deal with the python quickly. A series of shouts rang out, and the cultivators began retreating, preparing to leave the valley. The giant python was simply too terrifying. At that very moment, it was still within the lake, attacking the cultivators in the valley one by one. After a series of attacks, many of the human cultivators died. Everyone began to retreat and rushed out of the valley like a tide. Humph, you want to leave now? It's too late. On the mountain peak, Ling Chen looked at the panicking crowd and laughed. At this moment, the ground began to tremble and a rumbling sound could be heard. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping. Outside the valley, smoke and dust splashed everywhere. The ground rumbled and shook violently. In the smoke and dust, many fierce beasts were rushing toward the valley. At a glance, there were hundreds of them. Rumble, rumble. The rumbling sound was as if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Occasionally, some stones would roll down from the mountain peak. When the crowd reached the entrance of the valley, they were completely dumbfounded when they saw the fierce beasts in the smoke and dust. This time, there was really no way to advance or retreat. There were many fierce beasts in front and furious beasts behind. Everyone understood what Zi Qin felt before. What's going on? Why are there so many fierce beasts here? So many fierce beasts. Are all the fierce beasts in the spiritual herbal garden here? Are they summoned? What's going on? The fierce beasts rushed over with a tyrannical aura. Their target was clear. Let's fight with these fierce beasts. Let's kill our way out. If we meet the python, we'll die. If we meet the fierce beasts, there's a way out. Let's go. A few decisive roars could be heard from the crowd. Then, a large group of strong cultivators rushed toward the approaching fierce beasts. But if one looked carefully, they would see that a few figures were retreating quickly. They were the ones who had spoken before. Rumble. Men and beasts collided. Under the huge impact of the fierce beasts, the human cultivators were instantly sent flying and were trampled to death by the fierce beasts. Chapter 63. Numerous vicious beasts swarmed over, instantly engaging in a fierce battle with the humans. The entire valley had become a huge battlefield. Peng, a ninth-grade powerhouse, had his Zhen Qi surging around him. He struck out with a wave of energy, killing an eighth-grade ferocious beast with a single strike. Then more ferocious beasts rushed over, drowning him like a tidal wave. With every step, one could clearly hear the ninth-level expert's bones shattering, as well as his despairing screams. A ninth-level expert had died. Ah, save me! A cultivator was buried in the mouth of a fierce red tiger. He only had time to cry out for help before he died. No one came to his rescue, and everyone was in danger. Senior apprentice brother Ziqin, save me! Senior apprentice sister Su Mengyao, save me! Senior apprentice brother Mui! Senior apprentice brother Liangguang, save us! A group of disciples drowned in vicious beasts cried out for help. Pooh! A sword light flashed, and a ninth-level vicious beast died. The 10th-level expert of the Battle Martial sect had already killed 3 level 9 ferocious beasts, but soon after he was targeted by even more ferocious beasts. Many ferocious beasts crazily rushed over, directly drowning this 10th-level expert. Blood splattered everywhere as vicious beasts died one after another. However, more and more wounds appeared on the expert's body, until finally he was drowned by the tide of vicious beasts. A 10th-level expert had died. Get up! Some of the disciples who were skilled in movement techniques leaped up into the air. At the same time, they borrowed strength from the walls of the mountain and stabbed out with their weapons, borrowing strength once more. After borrowing strength multiple times, they finally reached the peak of the mountain. However, before they could laugh in excitement, they saw Ling Chen on the mountain peak. Die! Ling Chen sneered and kicked out with lightning speed. The cultivator fell into the valley from a height of several hundred meters, and he was dead for sure. There were vicious beasts in front, a giant python behind, and Ling Chen and the others on the peak. It could be said that the disciples had reached a dead end. Hiss! The giant python roared again and again, calling out names again and again. In just a short period of time, more than 20 human cultivators had died. They were dragged into the lake, no longer making a sound. The earth trembled as the vicious beasts finally charged into the valley. Many humans turned back, causing the earth to tremble as a chaotic battle broke out. Ziqin and the others also stood up. Under such circumstances, they could no longer continue to recover. It must be Ling Chen. It must be their scheme. That damn thing. Everything is for the sake of killing us. Mui and the others were furious, but at this moment there was nothing they could do. What should we do? Should we charge out? Someone suggested. Why are there so many ferocious beasts? Facing so many ferocious beasts, if they were in their peak condition, they might have been able to deal with them. However, now that they were all injured, they could only sigh helplessly. We can't, Ziqin said. We're all seriously injured right now, and we can't escape from hundreds of dire beasts. Then what should we do? Wait for death? Let's gather together and take turns guarding a certain area, slowly exhausting these beasts to death. Good idea. Let's move forward first. It's too dangerous here. It's within the python's attack range. Everyone suggested that they move forward. Heart-wrenching cries for help sounded in their ears, but Zichen and the others turned a deaf ear to these cries. Even Su Mengyao was too lazy to pay attention to them. Muyi took the lead, his Zhen Qi surged, and those attacking ferocious beasts were sent flying. The python once again leaped out of the lake. Its cold eyes glanced at the chaotic crowd, as if it was considering where to launch its attack. Suddenly, the python saw Zichen and the others moving. Huge waves surged, and the lake surged. The python's eyes were extremely cold. It opened its bloody mouth and rushed toward Su Mengyao, who was walking at the back. A strong wind whistled, and a humid breath hit their faces. The Xiantian pressure was approaching again. Su Mengyao, who was aware of the threat, suddenly turned her head and saw that the python's bloody mouth was already in front of her. Ah! Su Mengyao screamed in fear. Apparently, she did not expect that the giant python would attack her. At this critical moment, a strong force suddenly gushed out from the side and directly pushed Su Mengyao back. She staggered and fell to the side, barely dodging the attack of the giant python. Her body brushed past the scales of the giant python. Su Mengyao fell to the ground and escaped danger, but at the place where she was standing, a person suddenly appeared. It was Zichen, who had knocked her down at the critical moment. In the next moment, the python bit toward Zichen. The dense rows of cold teeth in its bloody mouth seemed to want to split Zichen in two. Within the huge mouth, there was an incomparable stench, dripping blood, and some human limbs. It could be said to be extremely ferocious. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the python closed its bloody mouth. Shwa! The python retreated again, but there was no sign of Zichen. Waves splashed on the surface of the lake as the python fell. Zichen had been bitten by the python and was dragged to the bottom of the lake. It's not Zichen! Lin Shui screamed, her eyes filled with despair. She disregarded her own life and death and rushed towards the surface of the lake. However, she was suddenly pulled back by someone. It was the severely wounded Miao Kong. Hurry up and retreat. Miao Kong pulled Lin Shui back. At the same time, Zhang Haoyan also supported Su Mengyao and followed Muyi and the others. The python was invincible now. No one could stop it. Zichen had been swallowed. Although everyone was angry, there was no other way. As for killing the python, they didn't even need to think about it. Everyone followed Zichen's suggestion and found a place with their backs against the mountain wall. They took turns guarding the area. Lin Shui and Su Mengyao were the ones being protected. This was because, at this moment, the two of them were in a very bad state. Lin Shui was grief-stricken. As she saw Zichen bitten by the python, she even had thoughts of suicide. Tears flowed down her face. Su Mengyao wasn't much better than Lin Shui. Her beautiful face was deathly pale. Her mind was filled with the scene of Zichen knocking her back. At that moment, Zichen used his own life to exchange for hers. He saved her, but he was buried in the python's mouth. Zhang Haoyan stood in front of the two of them. He was seriously injured. He attacked the berserk beasts madly, again and again. Zichen protected me before. Now that he's dead, I must protect his friends. Zhang Haoyan's eyes were full of determination. He was like an iron tower, standing there unwaveringly. He used his body to protect the two people behind him. Everyone gathered together and guarded a small area. Several people resisted the berserk beasts, while the others recovered from their injuries. After a while, they would switch positions with each other. It could be said that this was the only way to survive in the current situation. It was also the most effective way. When the others saw this scene, they followed suit one after another, imitating what they did. Lin Shui's eyes stared blankly at the lake. She was grief-stricken. She didn't know why, but after the python swallowed Zichen, it didn't attack for a long time. The lake water was still violently surging, as if there was a battle at the bottom of the lake. Zi-Chen isn't dead yet. He's fighting with the python. The lake water surged violently, creating huge waves that were dozens of meters tall. Lin Shui's blank eyes suddenly lit up as she cried out in alarm. The few people who had recovered from their injuries all subconsciously turned their heads. They saw the surging lake water. Occasionally, they could see the python's scaly body swimming on the surface of the lake. Su Mingyao's eyes also lit up. Her deathly pale face was slightly flushed. She prayed for Zi-Chen in her heart, hoping that he could survive. Zi-Chen, you must hold on. Even Su-Yan had died in the mouth of the python, let alone Zi-Chen, who was at stage 8 true energy. Therefore, the only thought in everyone's hearts was that Zi-Chen could hold on a little longer. As for whether he lived or died, it was already decided when Zi-Chen fell into the lake. Perhaps in everyone's hearts, Zi-Chen's ending was already in their minds. However, no one was willing to admit it. Everyone was waiting for a miracle to happen. However, this miracle was just too unlikely. Kill them all. It would be best if you could kill them all. It's just a pity that the two beauties of the Nimbus martial ancestor, the two beauties that Qinfeng yearns for, are about to die. On top of the mountain, Ling Chen looked at her masterpiece with satisfaction, a trace of regret flashing through her eyes. Xiaqiu, who was beside her, also laughed. It is a pity. Since they're going to die anyway, it would be great if we could enjoy it a little before we die. We can also experience Chen Feng's taste. There are plenty of beautiful women. Don't let these two women delay the important matters. How's the matter of the elixirs? Ling Qin suddenly asked. These vicious beasts came here in pursuit of the soul-enchanting fragrance. Obviously, they gave up on the elixirs. Right now, I'm afraid that our people are already cramping up their hands from picking the elixirs. Xiaqiu said. That's good. Our goal is not only to win the bet, but also to make the other two factions suffer heavy losses. Ling Chen's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. Su-Yan, that trash, can't even deal with the giant python. If both sides suffer heavy losses, we'll really be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. At this moment, in the elixir garden, the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor were crazily picking the elixirs. They followed the rich fragrance of the elixirs and picked them one by one. Some of the 500 to 600 years old elixirs were usually guarded by vicious beasts. However, since the vicious beasts had left today, they could pick them as they wished. Without the vicious beasts guarding them, they could pick the elixirs as they wished. Hurry up and be more efficient. We still have to go back and fight later. Ling Fei's voice sounded. Beside him were Qin Qi and Tai Kai, who had lost an arm. The two of them were now Ling Fei's left and right bodyguards, ensuring his safety at all times. This plan succeeded. Our Nimbus martial ancestor is the biggest winner. I just don't know if Zi-Chen fell for it. Qin Qi gritted his teeth. One of his arms was chopped off by Zi-Chen, so he had always hated Zi-Chen. Don't worry, Qin Qi. I know you hate Zi-Chen, and so do I. Didn't they say that they had already sent the news to Zi-Chen? The temptation of the 1,000-year-old elixirs was enough to make Zi-Chen go. Who knows, maybe he's already dead. Ling Fei smiled and patted Qin Qi's shoulder. It's a pity that we didn't kill him with our own hands. Qin Qi said, It is a pity, but we can't kill him with our own hands. It's not bad to let others kill him. I hope that he'll be torn apart by the vicious beasts. Tai Kai said viciously. Zi-Chen was swallowed by the giant python. His life was in danger, but he wasn't dead yet. After knocking Su Mingyao away, Zi-Chen saw the giant python's mouth full of cold teeth. In the next moment, he was bitten by the giant python. However, at this critical moment, Zi-Chen tapped his foot and rushed into the giant python's mouth. When the giant python closed its mouth, Zi-Chen dodged the 2 rows of teeth and slid towards the giant python's stomach. Chapter 64. The giant python often swallowed living things, so it didn't care at all. Moreover, this giant python was hundreds of meters long. Swallowing a small Z-chin wouldn't be a problem at all. It wouldn't even be full, just enough for a snack. If there were no accidents, Z-chan would definitely die after entering the giant python's stomach. But all the problems were caused by the black sword in Z-chen's hand. This was a first-class weapon. It couldn't break through the defense of a Xiantian realm giant python. But now Z-chin was inside the python's stomach. This was the python's weakest point. There was no defense at all. Z-chen's Zhen Qi surged around his body. The pitch-black sword flashed with silver light. With a flash of sword light, the black sword pierced deeply into the python's body, leaving only the hilt outside. The giant python roared in pain. It shook the endless waves and began to swallow vigorously. A strong suction force appeared in its stomach, trying to suck Z-chin in. Z-chin tightly grasped the hilt of the sword and remained motionless. He allowed the huge suction force to suck Z-chin and his sword into the python's stomach. But wherever the suction force passed, it left a deep wound. Blood gushed out from the wound like a small river. This was Z-chen's only hope. Whether he could survive or not depended on this. Blood violently spurted out from the python's stomach. Hiss! The giant python was constantly rolling in the lake like an angry dragon. It couldn't bear the pain in its stomach. It could only swim continuously, using its body to avoid the lake's surface. The snake's body wriggled and a stronger suction force appeared. It was determined to swallow Z-chan into its stomach. At the same time, the giant python opened its bloody mouth and began to drink the lake water. Like an angry dragon drinking water, the endless lake water rushed into the python's stomach and splashed onto Z-chen's body. A silver light appeared on his body. He held the black sword tightly and didn't let go. He allowed the black sword to pierce through the python's body and slide into its stomach bit by bit. The serpent was very large, and the long sword didn't manage to pierce through the serpent's body. At this moment, the pain of flesh being cut caused the serpent to become irritable. It stuck its head out for more than 30 meters before it suddenly fell towards the surface of the lake with a loud bang. Waves splashed everywhere as the lake water surged. As Z-chin continued to slide down, the suction force from the snake's abdomen grew stronger and stronger. A pungent mucus stuck to his body, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if he was being roasted by fire. Even his strong constitution was showing signs of corrosion. Not good. If this goes on, I'm going to be swallowed and digested by the python sooner or later. Z-chen's expression changed drastically. Specks of silver light appeared on his hand as he pointed directly at the python. In an instant, a bolt of lightning appeared and exploded within the snake's body, emitting a thunderous sound. The giant python's body trembled, and its body rose up before landing again. It was born to only know how to swallow and not vomit. At this moment, there was nothing it could do about what was happening in its stomach. Z-chin grabbed the black sword with one hand and unleashed a barrage of attacks with the other. He was determined to kill the giant python while it was still inside the snake's body. Hiss! The giant python hissed in pain. Its head and body leaped dozens of meters high before it suddenly landed. It continuously hit the surface of the lake, causing waves to splash dozens of meters high. Z-chan was confused by the impact, but he still held onto the black sword tightly. He could not enter the snake's abdomen, or else he would definitely be digested. The giant python's strange behavior naturally attracted the attention of many cultivators. Could it be that Z-chan is still alive? It's already been 15 minutes, and the giant python is still making a ruckus. It seems that Z-chan is still alive. Z-chan is still alive. That's great. Some people were happy while others were sad. Many cultivators had lost their lives to the raging beasts, but Z-chin, who should have died long ago, was still alive. However, this was also good. As long as Z-chan was still alive, The giant python would not have the energy to kill others. At this moment, the entire lake was boiling. The giant python was like a flood dragon, its body twisting and turning. It would rise and fall from time to time, splashing endless waves. This guy is really lucky. He's still alive. On the mountain peak, Ling Chen's eyes shone with surprise. What should we do? Someone is about to rush out of the valley. Xiaqiu asked. Gather everyone and block the valley. Don't let anyone leave alive. Ling Chen said coldly. His figure flashed, and he flew down the mountain peak. Zi Chen slid down dozens of meters. Then he saw a sparkling blue light in the pitch-black snake's abdomen. It was like a huge gemstone, appearing on top of his head. That is, Zi Chen's eyes lit up. This blue gemstone was still trembling, as if it was alive, and it was constantly jumping. This is the snake's gallbladder, Zi Chen exclaimed. It was said that snakes were different from other beasts. All of their energy essence was not in the heart, but gathered in the snake's gallbladder. The gallbladder was the snake's energy source. The snake's gallbladder trembled like a beating heart, providing the giant python with an endless supply of energy. The snake's gallbladder was dark blue, sparkling and translucent like a huge gemstone. It was as big as a human head, flickering with a bewitching light. Zi Chen's heartbeat quickened. The true value of this snake's gallbladder was far greater than a gemstone of the same size. This was the innate giant python's energy source. It was something that could not be obtained in abundance. Its value was no less than 1,000-year-old spirit herb. This is it. If I can get it, my strength will definitely break through. Moreover, I can also kill the giant python. It can be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Zi Chen's breathing was rapid. This was not because of excitement, but because the air in the snake's abdomen was limited. At this moment, Zi Chen found it difficult to breathe. The snake's gallbladder was several meters above his head. Moreover, there was a strong suction force in the abdomen, and the lake water was pouring down from above. It was difficult for Zi Chen to jump a few meters into the air. Fight! This was his only chance of survival. Zi Chen had to fight. If he jumped up, Zi Chen would definitely be sucked into the snake's abdomen and become its food. Thus, he had no choice but to use the old method. His right hand flashed with a silver light and stabbed towards the snake meat beside him. In an instant, his entire arm entered the snake's body. Then his left hand pulled out a long sword and stabbed forward. Zi Chen used the snake's body as a rock and climbed over it step by step. This method was the safest and most secure. But for the giant python, this was an indescribable pain. The giant python hissed and swam even more violently. The lake water was like a huge wave in the sea, surging up to the sky. After a quarter of an hour, Zi Chen finally arrived at the side of the snake's gallbladder. As his long sword flashed, some of the conjoined snake, meat beside the gallbladder, was directly cut off, revealing a complete gallbladder. This is it. Zi Chen's eyes shined and his breathing quickened. He did not have much time left. The snake's abdomen was already filled with lake water, and the air was becoming thinner and thinner. The battle outside was becoming more and more intense. Many cultivators had suffered heavy casualties, and in the snake's abdomen, Zi Chen opened his mouth and bit down on the snake's gallbladder. The skin of the snake's gallbladder was very tough. Zi Chen bit it several times, but it was bounced off. He was unable to break through its defense. I don't believe I can't bite it open. The Zhen Qi in his body was mobilized again. This time it gathered in his mouth. Zi Chen's teeth became silver, and his silver teeth were like steel saws. He suddenly bit down on the snake's gallbladder. Puff! The snake's gallbladder was bitten open. Then a bitter liquid flowed out of the gallbladder and rushed towards Zi Chen's mouth. The juice of the gallbladder was not comparable to elixirs or solid bare gallbladder. It was a pure liquid and the essence of energy, but it was extremely bitter. As soon as it entered his stomach, Chen wanted to vomit it out. His stomach was also churning. Good medicine was bitter, not to mention the energy source of a Xiantian realm giant python. It was even more bitter. Chen could only endure it and began to gulp it down. It was as if he was drinking nectar, but the bitterness on his face was even more intense. In the outside world, the throbbing python suddenly trembled and stopped moving. The lake water splashed and fell to the ground. Lin Shui had been looking at the lake. Seeing the lake calm down, her heart ached. She thought that Chen had died. Her hopeful eyes dimmed again, and she couldn't help but cry. He has persisted for so long. Su Mingyao's eyes became red and tears came out. Everyone sighed. A genius had finally fallen. Ah, what a pity. If it wasn't for this, he could have gone further. A genius who dies early can only blame his bad luck. But before everyone's sigh had completely faded, the lake's surface was turbulent again. The giant python's entire body stood upright. In an instant, it was hundreds of meters high. It was like a stone pillar that went against the sky. The snake's hundreds of meters long body jumped out of the water. The dense scales all over its body were shining with a blue light. Its ferocious triangular head was full of pain. It hissed again and again, extremely harsh. Then its entire body fell obliquely, like a collapsed stone pillar. Boom! The lake trembled. The giant python's body splashed hundreds of meters high as it fell. The giant python hissed again. This time it was in pain and despair. Chen is not dead yet. What is he doing? Why is the giant python in so much pain? Is he a cockroach that can't be killed? Even Su Yan died when facing the giant python, but he is still alive. The hissing is full of despair. Could it be that Chen has found a way to kill the giant python? Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Just then the lake surged. The giant python began to swim randomly in the lake. Its thick snake tail was like a long whip, slapping back and forth. Pa! The snake tail appeared from the lake and fell towards the valley. With a soft sound, countless stones fell and dust flew. Then the snake tail swung again and landed on the battlefield. In an instant, several ferocious beasts and humans were sent flying. Under the great force, they died instantly. Drops of water fell from the lake like it was raining. The giant python went berserk. It fled back and forth, its head slamming into the mountain wall with a loud bang. Its cold eyes were full of pain. The snake's body kept rolling like a flood dragon, creating endless waves. It quickly swept across the battlefield and went to the bottom of the lake. It swam towards the center of the lake, creating monstrous waves wherever it passed. However, as the giant python continued to swim, its strength became weaker and weaker. Chen was firmly fixed inside the giant python's body, gulping down the python's bile. 2/3 of the python's bile had already entered Chen's stomach. Chen's stomach had long since swelled up. The heavenly lightning body tempering art was running crazily. A large amount of bile was converted into energy and was absorbed by his heart. Fortunately, Chen had an extraordinary heavenly lightning body tempering art and a mysterious heart. Otherwise, just the energy of the giant python alone would have caused his body to explode. But even so, Chen's stomach was still round, showing signs of exploding. Moreover, as Chen swallowed more and more energy gathered in his body, unable to enter his meridians, Chen felt that his stomach was about to explode. Too much energy was running amok in his body. This was Xiantian energy. It was abnormally violent and far exceeded the range that Chen could bear. His body couldn't help but tremble. His face began to distort. The pain was no less than that of the giant python. Chapter 65. Just when Chen felt like his stomach was about to explode, his heart suddenly trembled. Then a strong suction force appeared. His heart seemed to have turned into a bottomless pit, directly sucking in all the energy in Chen's stomach. In just a few breaths, Chen's bulging stomach slowly calmed down. The crisis of his body exploding was easily resolved by the trembling of his heart. At the same time, the giant python that was slapping the surface of the lake with its snake-like body also quietened down. The huge waves fell, and the sky seemed to be raining heavily, making crashing sounds. The giant python's energy source was being sucked dry by Chen bit by bit. With a final gulp, the giant python's gallbladder was empty, without a single drop of energy. At the same time, the giant python that had been moving around also calmed down when its energy source disappeared. It floated on the surface of the lake, motionless as if it had died. It's not moving again. What's going on? The giant python stopped moving again. Lin Shui and Su Mengyao had been paying attention to the giant python's movements. Seeing that the giant python suddenly stopped moving, their faces changed. They didn't know what was going on, but they desperately hoped that the giant python would move again. However, after waiting for a long time, the giant python still didn't move. Charge! At this time, the battle in the valley was also coming to an end. Many humans and beasts had died, and the thick smell of blood filled the valley. A group of people rushed out of the valley and rushed towards the outside. Follow them. Some people's eyes lit up. They shouted loudly and followed one after another. Many disciples rushed out like a tide. During this time, a few disciples unfortunately died under the claws of the vicious beasts, but even more disciples rushed out. Pooh! Pooh! This was a road paved with blood. It was only a few hundred meters from the valley to the entrance, but along the way, there were too many corpses. Outside the valley, Ling Qin and the other disciples had been waiting for a long time. An invisible, murderous aura filled the valley. All the disciples who were fighting the martial ancestor stared at the entrance of the valley with cold eyes. When the first group of people rushed out, the murderous aura was completely revealed. A merciless killing intent seeped out. Kill! Ling Chen's expression was cold as she let out a roar. Many of the battle martial ancestors' disciples charged towards the surviving disciples of the three sects with killing intent. It's the people who fought the martial ancestor. What do you want? It's you, Ling Chen. What do you want? Our three sects are allies. Do you want to kill us? The disciples of the battle martial ancestor rushed forward. Their swords flashed, and killing intent filled the air. In an instant, severed limbs flew into the air, and cries of agony rang out continuously. Facing Ling Chen and the others, they were akin to lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Ling Chen and the others were like wolves in a flock of sheep, slaughtering them to their heart's content. An exhausted disciple of the battle martial ancestor was still laughing heartily when his fellow disciples came over. He thought he was saved, but in the next moment, this disciple raised his butcher's knife at him. Pooh! He raised his hand and brought the blade down. Blood splattered everywhere as the disciple fell to the ground in disbelief. Ling Qin, you're crazy. You even dare to kill the disciples of our sect. The faces of the other battle martial ancestor disciples changed. However, the only reply they received was a flurry of swords and sabers. No one spoke. There was only killing. They killed everyone that came out of the valley. Even if they were from their own sect, they would not let them go. After a series of attacks, the cultivators that came out of the valley suffered heavy casualties. They could only turn back and return. Ling Qin has brought people to kill us. Ling Qin has gone crazy. He wants to kill everyone. This is a scheme devised by Ling Qin. There were already cries of alarm coming from within the valley. Everyone knew what was happening outside. Chen's previous guess had been confirmed. Ling Qin wanted to kill everyone here. At this moment, he was already waiting outside the valley. All the disciples that were lucky enough to leave the valley were killed one by one. Everyone had no choice but to retreat. They could only fight with the vicious beasts. At the same time, many eyes were looking towards Mui and the others. After a fierce battle, everyone else had consumed a great deal of energy. On the other hand, Mui's side had recovered a great deal. Within the valley, Mui and the others were the ones with the most powerful combat strength. Senior Apprentice, Brother Mui, please think of a way to save us. Senior Apprentice, Brother Zhang Haoyan, we are fellow disciples. Please help us. Senior Apprentice, Sister Su Mengyao, please save us. Ling Qin wants to kill everyone. Everyone continued to plead, but Zhang Haoyan didn't even look at them. As for Mui, he was too lazy to care about these people. Su Mengyao was staring at the lake. She was staring at the motionless python, completely ignoring everyone else. Within the python's belly, Ziqin had swallowed all the energy source of the Xiantian python. Finally, he began to transform. His heart fiercely beat. A pure and rich silver energy flowed out like a gentle tide. It surged violently, but there was no danger. It surged through his limbs and bones, and even into abdomen's blood. His body and bones, under the nourishment of this energy, began to undergo a heaven-shaking change. His blood, bones, skin, all of them began to transform. It was as if his meridians were being cleansed. Under the scouring of this silver energy, there was a constant qualitative change. Before, Ziqin's body had only been comparable to a 9th-level vicious beast. But under this endless supply of energy, his body began to move closer to a 10th-level vicious beast. In an instant, this hurdle was overcome by the impact of this enormous energy. Ziqin's body transformed once more. This time, it was comparable to a 10th-level vicious beast. He was just one step away from becoming a Xiantian demonic beast. At the same time, within abdomen, Ziqin's true qi was also advancing towards the peak of the 8th level. Then he broke through to the 9th level. A powerful aura surged out from Ziqin's body. With a flash of silver light, Ziqin appeared within the python's belly like a silver-armored war god. This was the energy of a Xiantian python. It was surging and powerful, as deep as the sea, as deep as the abyss. Even after being refined by Ling Chen's heart, the silver energy was still as vast as the sea. It wasn't strange for Ziqin's body and strength to break through one after another. If it had been an ordinary person, they would have broken through to the peak of Xiantian realm in one go. The python was motionless. Ziqin pulled out his black sword. The python even trembled. Then, Ziqin walked forward, trembling. Without its energy source, Ziqin was sure that even if the python didn't die, it would only be a relatively powerful beast. It couldn't even be considered a vicious beast. It couldn't even compare to a toothless tiger. It posed no threat to him. Ziqin walked forward step by step until he reached the python's mouth. I know you can hear me. I don't want to kill you. Do you want to open your mouth, or do you want me to do it myself? Ziqin stood in the python's mouth, looking at the row of sharp teeth. He didn't feel afraid at all. His powerful strength gave him great confidence. The python trembled and slowly opened its mouth. A Xiantian demonic beast already had a high level of intelligence. With a tap of his foot, Ziqin's body flew diagonally. Then, with a somersault in the air, he landed on the python's back. However, his body was now covered in blood and some unknown liquid. The stench of blood assailed his nostrils. It could be said that he was in an extremely sorry state. Helpless, he could only jump into the lake and wash himself. After a moment, Ziqin reappeared and jumped onto the python's back. Only then did the distant sounds of fighting and the roars of vicious beasts reach his ears. This place was more than a kilometer away from the valley. Ziqin looked up and saw many vicious beasts attacking the cultivators of the 3 sections. It's not over yet. I don't know if Shui, and the others are in danger. Ziqin's heart trembled. He originally wanted to go pick the spirit herbs, but he was worried about his friend's safety. He could only give up on them for now. Take me to the shore, Ziqin said in a deep voice. Although the Xiantian python had lost its energy source, it wasn't dead. It was very weak, but it had no problem swimming in the water. The python turned around in the lake and took Zi-Chin to the valley. "You've lost your strength. Don't go near the shore lest you get killed. Wait for me here," Zi-Chin said indifferently. Then, with a tap of his foot, his figure rose and flew towards the valley. The python was expressionless as it slowly sank to the bottom of the lake. Lin Shui and Su Mengyao had been paying attention to the changes in the lake. When they felt the python move again, their hearts jumped to their throats. Then they saw a person standing on the python's head. "Zi-Chen, it's Zi-Chen. He's not dead," Lin Shui said excitedly. "It's him. He's really still alive." Su Mingyao's eyes were filled with tears of joy. "What?" Everyone was stunned and turned their heads. Then they saw Zi-Chin flying in the air. Their faces were filled with disbelief. What's going on?" Zhang Haoqian and the others were stunned, but then their faces were filled with ecstasy. "Zi-Chin, you really didn't die?" Everyone was very excited. Muyi, Lu Peng, and the others were looking at Zi-Chan with amazement, as if they could see through him. Su Yan had died in the python's mouth, but Zi-Chen had actually survived. This was just too incredible. Lin Shui had already thrown herself into Zi-Chen's arms. She tightly hugged Zi-Chen, sobbing in a low voice. Su Mengyao also came forward and laid her head on Zi-Chen's shoulder. Zi-Chen had risked his life to save her, and this had caused great waves in the goddess' heart. With a beauty in his arms, Zi-Chen was very happy. But this happy moment was always short-lived. At this moment, a beast roar sounded out. An 8th-level vicious beast roared as it flew towards Zi-Chin. A strong wind whistled. The vicious beast had already opened its mouth, revealing its fangs. A tyrannical aura gushed out. Zi-Chin sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. He pointed a finger at the vicious beast. "Thunderbolt finger." Silver light shone between his fingers, and in the next moment, a bolt of lightning appeared, raging forward like a roaring dragon. Boom! The sound of thunder and lightning instantly sounded. The earth trembled, and the entire valley began to shake. The power of thunder and lightning raged, and rays of silver light appeared. The 8th-level vicious beast came quickly and retreated quickly. When it came, it was ferocious and terrifying, and when it retreated, it was completely silent and lifeless. The sound of thunder attracted the attention of everyone in the valley. Everyone turned their heads and looked at Zi-Chen in disbelief. "That's Zi-Chen. Didn't he die?" "The Khanate giant python didn't kill him." "Did he kill the giant python? How is that possible? What the hell?" "Even the Khanate Su Yan died, but Zi-Chen is still alive." Everyone felt their throats dry up. They couldn't believe what they saw. They looked at the lake, but there was nothing there. The lake was calm, and there was no trace of the Khanate giant python. Roar. Chapter 66. You two back off a little. Leave the rest to me. Many ferocious beasts roared and charged towards them. Zi-Chen smiled indifferently and signaled for the two to back off. "Be careful. Be careful." The two retreated, their eyes full of concern. Zi-Chen nodded. His eyes instantly turned cold. His level 9 Jin Qi began to surge. Streaks of silver light flowed on the surface of his body. Occasionally, an illusory lightning flashed. Swish! His feet flashed and disappeared like a ghost. In the next moment, he appeared in front of a level 8 beast. A black light flashed, and the flowing light strike appeared. Puff! A beast's heart was pierced, and blood spurted out. Thunderbolt finger. A bolt of lightning flew out from his finger and instantly pierced through the head of a beast. Boom! Zi-Chin clenched his fists. His chi and blood surged like a rampaging Class 10 vicious beast. With a single punch, a Class 9 vicious beast skull was shattered. Its body fell to the ground with a loud thud, dead on the spot. Puff! A sword light flashed, and the flowing light sword appeared. It pierced the vital part of a beast at extreme speed. In just a few short attacks, several powerful beasts were annihilated. Each of them was a one-hit kill. In his prime, Zichen was not afraid of being besieged. He was more like a level 10 beast. What a powerful fighting strength. That's level 9 Genqi. He actually broke through. What kind of luck is this? Not only did he not die, he even broke through. Everyone was dumbstruck. They now had a deeper understanding of Zichen's powerful combat strength. Regardless of whether it was the powerful flowing light sword or the power of lightning, they were all extremely shocked. Zichen's body emitted a thick smell of blood. An austere killing intent filled the surrounding few meters. The blood of the beasts on the ground had already formed a small river. The powerful attack and the awe-inspiring killing intent had already frightened the other beasts. They hurriedly retreated and fled. After a few breaths, no more beasts approached Zichen. Senior brother Zichen is so powerful. Senior brother Zichen, you are our idol. The Nimbus martial ancestor is wonderful because of you. Senior brother Zichen, save us. Seeing Zichen running away, everyone was dumbfounded. Then, some of the quick-witted disciples shouted again and again. Some of the disciples even started walking towards Zichen. Humph! Zichen coldly snorted, his cold eyes sweeping over the smiling disciples before he turned and walked towards Zhang Haoqian and the others. Impressive. He actually broke through. Impressive. Zhang Haoqian laughed. You sure are tenacious. Even a Xiantian python cannot kill you. You really are a cockroach. Miao Kong sent a punch towards Zichen's chest. Zichen, you've really made us have a whole new level of respect for you. LV Peng, Mui, and the others also sighed. When Zichen arrived, the rich smell of blood had intimidated many of the beasts. The beasts that were besieging Mui and the others turned and fled, as if they were very afraid of Zichen. Seeing your divine might, the beasts ran away as soon as they saw you. Lin Shui joked. She tightly held onto Zichen's hand, not letting go. She was the happiest person that Zichen hadn't died. How is it? Did Ling Qin and the others appear? Zichen asked. The appearance of the beasts was obviously part of Ling Chen's plot. That was why Zichen asked this question. They came out. They are outside guarding the valley. They killed everyone that went out. So far, many of the disciples that rushed out have been killed by them. Muyi coldly said. As he spoke of Ling Qin, his expression became gloomy. Oh, are there many people? Quite a few. Muyi said. Zichen hesitated for a moment and said, Then you should quickly recover from your injuries. I will protect you. Muyi and the others nodded. However, at this time, Su Mengyao suddenly exclaimed, Zichen, look at them. They are all riding rafts. It seems they want to enter the lake to pick the Millennium Elixirs. Zichen turned his head and saw more than a dozen disciples jump onto the rafts. His nose was crooked with anger. This group of people was really good at scheming. When they saw him appear, they thought that the Xiantian python had been killed. But now they had their eyes on the Millennium Elixirs. These people are really shameless. Lin Shui angrily said, Zichen, is the Xiantian python dead? LV Peng suddenly asked. Zichen shook his head and said, No, it just lost its fighting strength. It is no different from dying. Then, you mean, anyone can take the Millennium Elixirs? Yes. Zichen nodded. Then why haven't you gone yet? LV Peng suddenly glared and shouted. But you guys, Zichen said hesitantly, we can still hold on for a while. You risked your life to kill the Xiantian python. Only you can have the Millennium Elixirs. Hurry up and go. LV Peng said. The others also nodded at Zichen, their eyes full of encouragement. Well, I, Zichen, will remember this kindness. Zichen finished speaking and directly turned around and rushed towards the lake. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Zi-Chin and stopped him. Senior brother Zi-Chin, don't be too greedy. You've killed the 10 inner disciples, killed the Khanate giant python, and made a breakthrough in your strength. Don't tell me you still want to snatch the 1,000-year-old spiritual herb? This was a disciple of the Nimbus martial ancestor. His strength was at the 9th level of the true Qi realm. He had been hiding in the back and occasionally fought, so he was not injured. Senior brother Zi-Chin, be content with what you have. Aren't you being too greedy? Another Nimbus martial ancestor disciple appeared. This person was also at the 9th level of the true Qi realm. You guys are really shameless. Zi-Chin killed the Xiantian python. The Millennium Elixirs are his. If you want to take it, why didn't you do it earlier? Behind them, Su Mengyao was furious and directly rebuked. Junior sister, you're wrong. Zi-Chin killed the 10 inner disciples and has already violated the sect's taboo. When we return, the elders will naturally punish him. Senior brother Qinfeng will also do things impartially. As for junior sister, you should think carefully about which side to stand on. Following him will only bring you trouble. One of the disciples said, Zi-Chin, if you let go of the Millennium Elixirs, we can forget about you killing the 10 inner disciples. When we return, we will even put in a few good words for you in front of senior brother Qinfeng. When the time comes, following senior brother Qinfeng, you will have endless resources. That's right. Don't ruin your future for a Millennium Elixirs. You must not make a mistake. The two said righteously. Zi-Chin was so angry that he laughed. He had a certain understanding of the shamelessness of the two. Suppressing his anger, he said, Are you guys done? We're done. Think about it carefully. The two said, No need. I've already thought about it. Zi-Chin's eyes flashed with a cold light. What? Zi-Chin, you still want to kill us? You've already killed the 10 inner disciples and broken the rules of the Nimbus martial ancestor. If you kill us too, even if you have 10 lives, it won't be enough. Unless you stay in the spiritual herbal garden for the rest of your life. The two threatened. You guys are shameless. Behind them, Lin Shui scolded angrily. Zi-Chin had also reached the limit of his patience. Did I say I'm going to kill you guys? Haha, that's right. Going against us is going against senior brother Qinfeng. That's the same as going against the Nimbus martial ancestor. Zi-Chin, you're very smart. We have high hopes for you. The two laughed. However, at that moment, Zi-Chin moved. The misty steps appeared under his feet, and like a phantom, he flashed in front of the two people. Immediately after, Zi-Chin attacked with lightning speed towards the two people's dantian. Pooh! Pooh! 2 sounds of air breaking were heard. The two's abdomen were instantly crippled. The furious Zi-Chin's attack was very decisive and clean. You actually crippled me. I want you to die. Zi-Chin, you'll die a horrible death. The two's faces were pale as they looked at Zi-Chin in disbelief. They clearly didn't expect Zi-Chin's temper to be so bad. He actually attacked them without hesitation and crippled them with one attack. Scum, like, you guys don't deserve to live in this world. Not to mention, you guys even had designs on me. Zi-Chin sneered. Carrying the two, he suddenly soared into the air and flew towards the lake. Seeing Zi-Chin's decisiveness, the people around them also retreated. Their eyes were filled with fear. Obviously, they had the same idea as the two before and wanted to talk to Zi-Chin. Giant Python, I'm here to deliver you food. Quickly show yourself. While they were still in the air, Zi-Chin shouted loudly and threw the two of them down. With 2 loud splashes, the two of them fell into the lake. Immediately after, a huge creature with a green glow appeared. It opened its huge mouth, and with 2 cracking sounds, the 2 disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor screamed miserably. In an instant, their bodies were bitten into pieces. Without a sound, they were swallowed by the giant python. After making a mistake once, The giant python would definitely not make the same mistake twice. Therefore, it was bound to bite its prey to death before swallowing them. The giant python's body appeared. Zichen's figure landed steadily on the python's head. He said, "Take me to the elixir." "Ah, it's the giant python. It's not dead yet. Isn't it dead?" How can this Zichin command a Xiantian stage giant python? On the bamboo raft, after seeing the giant python, the disciples exclaimed. Their eyes were filled with fear and shock. Fortunately, Zichin didn't let the giant python attack them. However, there were still many disciples who turned back on the raft. They no longer hoped to obtain the Millennium Elixir. This Zichin is really not ordinary. Seeing this scene, the people in the valley all gasped. They looked at Zichan with fear in their eyes. Because of Zichen's appearance, he had killed a few ferocious beasts. Many of the ferocious beasts were panicking and were running out of the valley. This made the pressure on the cultivators lessen a lot. At that moment, they had the time to fight over the spiritual medicines. However, there were still battles happening everywhere. After losing its battle power, the giant python turned from a demonic beast to a ferocious beast. However, its speed in the water was still very fast. It was far faster than a bamboo raft. Under the lead of the giant python, Zichin flew in a straight line. "Stop him! Stop him!" On the surface of the lake, many disciples were crying out in shock, but no one dared to move. The giant python beneath Zichin was too shocking. No one knew that it had already lost all of its battle strength. Swoosh! However, Zichen's departure was too late. There was still a disciple who rushed to the top of the rock and arrived in front of the water spirit flower. "Stop!" Zichin shouted. He pointed at the head of the giant python and flew towards the water spirit flower. Zichen's original intention was to land on the rock and compete with this stranger for the water spirit flower. However, he didn't expect that when he was flying, the stranger suddenly turned around and smiled at Zichin. He pointed his body, and in an instant, a burst of level 10 Jin Qi erupted. A violent aura mixed with a powerful battle skill attacked Zichin. Boom! Catching Zichin off guard, this disciple who had been hiding for a long time finally showed his might. He punched Zichen's chest, causing Zichin, who had just leaped into the air, to fall back down. Chapter 67. 10th Level Zhen Qi. Where did this 10th Level Zhen Qi come from? Who the hell is this guy? When did such a person appear in the Nimbus martial ancestor? Weren't there only 10 inner disciples? In the valley, Mui and the others exclaimed. Obviously, even they did not see through the opponent's concealment technique. Lin Shui and Su Mengyao were also in disbelief. The opponent had been hiding all this time, but now he suddenly attacked. Everyone was worried for Zichin. Zichan was hit in the chest and fell towards the lake. Just as he was about to fall into the lake, the giant python swam and caught Zichin. Zichan landed on its back. Xiantian demonic beasts had high intelligence and were very smart. It knew that among the humans, only Zichin did not want to kill it, so it helped him a little. Zichen's chest heaved up and down. After standing up from the snake's back, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Even with his strong physique, he was still injured. "Humph, you want to fight with me? You're still too inexperienced." The young man slowly descended and sneered. Under Zichen's gaze, he took away the water spirit flower. "What, you're not convinced? After being hit by my fist, how much strength do you have left?" The young man sneered. Zichin did not say a word. If the attack had hit somewhere else, Zichin would have been seriously injured. However, with the mysterious heart, Zichin was only slightly injured. The blood he spat out was only because his blood was in turmoil. "Young man, you're still naive. Showing off your little strength is simply courting death. You killed one of the inner disciples. How dare you? Wait until you go back and accept your punishment. I believe that Brother Chinfeng will be very interested in the matter of you killing a fellow disciple." The young man sneered, his face full of ridicule. He was like an elder teaching a junior. After a few breaths, Zi-Chen's injuries were healed. He coldly looked at the young man and said, "Are you done farting?" "What did you say?" The young man's mocking expression suddenly became gloomy. "I said, are you done farting? If you are, then obediently take out the elixir, and I'll leave your corpse intact." Zi-Chen coldly said, "Shameless boasting." The young man was furious. "Come and take it if you have the ability. As you wish." Zi-Chen tapped his foot and shot forward like an arrow. His speed was extremely fast, and he did not seem to be injured at all. "What? You're not injured?" The young man's face suddenly changed. He had seen Zi-Chen's powerful combat strength before, and he knew that Zi-Chen was no weaker than him. He had only dared to be so arrogant because he had injured Zi-Chen with a sneak attack. However, he did not expect Zi-Chen's body to be so strong that he was not injured at all. "Good kid, I underestimated you. I did not expect your physique to be so strong," the young man coldly said. His stage Tenjin Chi surged. This was the 11th stage Tenjin Chi warrior from Nimbus martial ancestor. However, he had always been in a hidden state. Because of Chen Feng, there were not many stage Tenjin Chi warriors who could enter the spirit herbal garden. There are more things that you can't imagine. Zi-Chen had already landed on top of the rock. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched forward. The wind whistled and the chi surged. The two attacks instantly collided. Bang! After one attack, Zi-Chen did not move at all. On the other hand, the young man had already taken a few steps back. His face had become extremely pale. "Trash like you dares to be so arrogant," Zi-Chen coldly sneered. To be able to test out the opponent's strength with one attack, he was simply a piece of trash. His feet tapped on the ground, and his body had already moved forward, throwing out a few more punches. The two figures fell into the water. However, at this moment, the Xiantian giant python appeared again and caught the two falling figures. Bang! Zi-Chen threw out another punch, and the young man was pushed back again and again on the snake's body. At this moment, the young man's face was bruised and swollen. He finally realized how big the gap between the two was. He thought that his strength was very strong and was almost on par with Zi-Chen. But when they really fought, he finally realized how big the gap was. You don't know your own strength, and you still dare to teach others a lesson. What a shameless boast. Zi-Chen punched the young man back. You are also one of Qin Feng's people, right? You really don't know what's good for you. Walking on the snake's body, Zi-Chen stepped towards the young man. Crack! The young man's arm was broken by Zi-Chen, and he screamed in pain. Do you know why I didn't use Thunderbolt Finger? Because I'm afraid that if I kill you, you'll ruin my spirit medicine. With your strength, you think you're worthy of fighting me? Trash? Zi-Chen kicked down again. He was very displeased with the young man's sneak attack from before. Crack! Another arm was broken by Zi-Chen's powerful stomp. The young man screamed again and again. His face was covered in cold sweat, and his eyes were filled with fear. He begged for mercy. Zi-Chen, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I can give you this spirit medicine, and I promise I won't tell Qin Feng about what happened here. This spirit medicine was originally mine. Zi-Chen reached into the young man's chest and took out the water spirit flower. The water spirit flower was sparkling and translucent like a blue wave. Under the sunlight, it emitted a dazzling light. The fragrance of the flower filled one's nose, making one feel refreshed. It took 1,000 years to bloom and 1,000 years to bloom. It was a rare spirit medicine. Looking at it from a close distance, Zi-Chen noticed that the flower was already showing signs of withering, which meant that it had been blooming for almost 1,000 years. Once it withered, it would grow into a water spirit fruit, which would ripen after 1,000 years. This spirit medicine is almost 2,000 years old. Zi-Chen's eyes shone. This was a rare treasure. I have given you the spirit medicine. Can you let me go now? After I get out, I promise I won't tell anyone about the 10 inner disciples." The young man said while enduring the pain. Zichen put away the spirit medicine and said coldly, "This spirit medicine was originally mine. As for your life, I can spare you, but I don't know if you can make it back alive. As long as you don't kill me, I can." The young man was extremely confident, but in his heart he was thinking about how to accuse Zichen when he got back. However, before he could finish his words, he felt a gust of wind blowing towards him. The waves surged, and a bloody mouth appeared in front of him. With a snap, the sharp teeth of the giant python had bitten through the defenseless young man's body. Then the young man was directly swallowed by the giant python. At this time there was only one man, one snake, and many messy wooden rafts on the vast lake. As for the others, after seeing the giant python, most of them had retreated. The remaining half saw Zichen and the young man fighting and retreated. "Let's go." Zichen stood on the giant python's head. The giant python was very obedient, and Zichen was very satisfied. To be honest, the python had saved their lives by killing Suyen, and he had devoured its energy source. Since the giant python was not dead, Zichen did not want to kill it. The giant python brought Zichen back to the lake, but its eyes were staring at Zichen's chest, full of reluctance and longing. "This thing is useful to you?" Zichen took out the water spirit flower. The giant python was very excited and nodded. However, it suddenly realized something and hurriedly shook its head. Its body slowly retreated, and its eyes were full of fear. "This time, you helped me kill a big enemy. I have to thank you, so I won't kill you. As for the water spirit flower, it is very useful to me, so I can't give it all to you. I will give you 2 petals. I hope you can recover your strength," Zichen said indifferently, and then he plucked 2 petals from the water spirit flower. The petals were crystal clear, and as soon as they left the water spirit flower, they turned into crystal clear liquid. They were like solid water droplets that did not disperse and contained an extremely rich spiritual energy. Under the sunlight, the droplets were like pearls, dazzling and dazzling. As Zichen pointed his finger, these small pearls flew towards the giant python. In endless gratitude, the giant python swallowed the 2 petals of the water spirit flower, and its body disappeared into the lake. Zichen turned around and left in a carefree manner. In the distance, there were extremely jealous and envious gazes. The battle in the valley was nearing its end. The ferocious beasts were either dead or running away, leaving only a ground full of corpses. There were humans and ferocious beasts. As for Miao Kong and Zhang Haotian, they were running between the corpses, either collecting spiritual herbs or contribution points. Miao Kong relied on his light body technique to move nimbly, and no one could compete with him. As for Zhang Haotian, he was even more direct. Whoever tried to snatch from him would be knocked down with a punch. It was simple, direct, and violent. Seeing this scene, Zichen wanted to say something, but Zhang Haotian, who had returned, said, "They deserve to die. There is no need to worry. As for these things, it would be a waste not to take them." Zichen did not have a good impression of these people. It was fine if they did not help him, but instead they spoke rudely and put on a righteous and hateful appearance. "Senior brother Zichen, what should we do next?" After everyone cleaned up the battlefield, a disciple walked towards Zichen. "Ling Qin is outside. We should think of a way to leave." Before Zichen could speak, the incomparably cold Zhang Haotian, who abhorred evil, shouted angrily, "Who wants to talk to you? Get lost." "Senior brother Zhang, this is your fault. We are in the same boat now. We should help each other. That's right. We can't be too selfish. Ling Qin is outside. We should work together. We can't have internal strife." Everyone chimed in one after another. "Now you know how to work together. What were you doing before? You bunch of inhumane people, get lost." Zhang Haotian was so angry that he laughed and scolded again and again. "Senior brother Zhang, This is your fault. We admit that we didn't think things through before, but we can't interfere. After all, it is a matter of the same sect. That's right. The Nimbus martial ancestor has a rule that no one can interfere with internal strife. That's right. Besides, half a year's time will be up soon. We still have to return to the sect. After all, that is our world. A disciple's words had a hidden meaning. As long as Senior Brother brings us out, we will naturally be grateful to Senior Brother. We won't say anything when we return. Today, Senior Brother Zi-Chin showed his prowess. When he returns to the sect in the future, he will definitely be groomed. We don't know anything else, but we can create momentum for Senior Brother. We can spread his prowess today and let all the Nimbus martial ancestor disciples worship Senior Brother Lingchen. Someone even started to threaten Zhang Haoyan. In the past, I thought that human nature was beautiful. I didn't expect to see so many shameless people in less than a day. Zi-Chen, let's go. Su Mengyao, who had been silent all this while, couldn't bear it anymore. She pulled Zi-Chen and walked out of the valley. Chapter 68. With a flash of sword light, a head flew into the air. I hate being threatened, Zi-Chen coldly said as he retracted his sword without a single drop of blood. Then he walked out of the valley. Mui and the others' injuries had already healed by 70% or 80%. The rest needed to be carefully treated. Seeing the headless corpse spurting out blood, everyone shut their mouths. The valley was silent, and no one dared to speak out of turn. What a bunch of idiots. You want to rely on others, but you're still so reasonable. Threats? You don't even have a brain. How can such people live until now? Miao Kong disdainfully curled his lips and turned to leave. I'm still too soft-hearted. How can we just kill one of these people? We should kill them all and not leave a single one alive. Let them remember this lesson. If there is a next life, they should grow a brain and not be such idiots. Zhang Haoyan sighed and turned to leave, but his words made everyone tremble in fear. They thought that they had met a fiend. Killing one wasn't enough. He wanted to kill them all. Let's just follow behind Senior Apprentice Brother Zi-Chen. You Nimbus martial ancestor people are really brainless. In this situation, you can't even tell the situation. Don't you know who's strong and who's weak? You actually use threats. A bunch of brainless people. How could we have listened to their words and not helped Senior Apprentice Brother Zi-Chen? That Su Yan is a madman. We should have killed him. That's right, it's all their fault for coming up with such a bad idea. The other disciples also left the valley. A bunch of trash. What do you know? What do you mean you can't tell the situation? Zi-Chen has nothing in the sect, and he killed so many of Senior Apprentice Brother Qinfeng's people. He's dead for sure. What's the point of fawning over a dead man? If word of this reaches Senior Apprentice Brother Qinfeng's ears, he'll punish us. That's right. Let him open a path for us. Let's give him some light and warmth in the last moments of his life. It's better if he doesn't go with us. Everyone be careful. When Zi-Chen and Ling-Chen are both injured, we'll take the opportunity to kill our way out. As the crowd left, some Nimbus martial ancestor disciples whispered and followed behind. Outside of the valley, the disciples of the battle martial ancestor were lined up in a row. They were filled with murderous intent. In front of them was a bloody road created by humans and ferocious beasts. Blood flowed like a river, filling the air with the smell of blood. The appearance of Zi-Chen with a group of people gave Ling-Chen a fright. Zi-Chen, it's you, you're not dead yet? Ling-Chen exclaimed. How is that possible? Weren't you eaten by the giant python? Will I die if I eat it? Zi-Chen sneered. Looks like you've been here all this time. You must have been watching from the top of the mountain, right? You're lucky, but you'll definitely die today. We'll only know after we fight. Fought before? Do you think you can break through our defensive line with just the few of you? Let me tell you, today I, Ling-Chen, will take charge. No matter how many people come, they'll all die. Ling Chun disdainfully curled his lips, full of confidence. Beside him was a group of disciples filled with murderous intent. As for Ziqin, other than Mui and the other disciples were standing far away at the entrance of the valley. It seemed like they didn't want to fight, but wanted to take advantage of the situation when Ziqin was fighting to take advantage of the situation. Look at those people behind you, they're trash. How can such people have any fighting strength? Ling Qin disdainfully mocked. They're not my people. I don't need their help to deal with you. Ziqin's eyes flashed with a cold light. Moreover, my goal is not to break through your defensive line, but to kill all of you. Shameless boasting. Ling Qin shouted. Junior brothers, what do you say? Kill! 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 Deafening shouts sounded out. They were very orderly, very loud, and represented the determination to kill. They were all well-trained cultivators, and their goal here was to kill. This was a conspiracy that had been planned for decades. Ha! Shouting loudly doesn't mean you're strong. Ziqin sneered. He turned to the people next to him and asked, There may be a fierce battle, maybe a life or death battle. Are you ready? Don't worry, Ziqin. After the previous battle, we're already brothers. You don't need to be so polite with your brothers. Mui laughed. That's right. If we're lucky enough to survive, when we get out, we'll drink and have a good time. Liang Guang also laughed. Ziqin, I can't compare to you in killing vicious beasts, but when it comes to killing people, maybe you're not as strong as me. Lu Peng smiled indifferently, very free and easy. Humph! I can't live under the same sky with them. One side will fall. Zhang Haoqian said coldly. I'll try my best. Miao Kong shrugged. After that, the other injured 10th level true energy disciples were also very free and easy. The Xian martial ancestor had 11 10th level disciples, and now only 6 were left. 5 had already died. I'm not afraid. Lin Shui and Su Mengyao were also anxious to show their attitude. Ziqin laughed. You guys be careful. Don't be too far away from me. Have you said your last words? Ling Chen's eyes flashed with killing intent. She said coldly, then die, kill. Kill. With a roar that shook the sky, many Xian martial ancestor disciples rushed forward with killing intent. Boundless Zhen Qi stirred up the Ling Qi in the surroundings. Kill! Ziqin yelled and rushed forward first. He held the black sword tightly in his hand. Su Mengyao and Xue Lin followed on his left and right. The 3 of them formed a triangle and stabbed forward. Poof! The black sword flashed and a ray of light appeared. A bloodline flew and a head flew. Boom! Thunder exploded. The thunderbolt finger had already been launched, carrying a terrifying power of thunder. Kill! This was a matter of life and death. Su Mengyao and Lin Shui no longer hesitated. The 2 of them used their powerful battle skills, Spirit Snake Dance and Thousand Phantom Palm. Pa! The long whip flashed like a spirit snake and directly hit a cultivator's throat. Swoosh! The spirit snake danced and instantly pierced a disciple's heart. Su Mengyao had started a massacre today, and it was a killing spree. Every move was ruthless and vicious. The spirit snake whip in her hand seemed to come alive, cold and vicious, carrying a boundless killing intent. One cultivator after another fell down. In the short battle, several cultivators had died at Lin Shui's hands. She had comprehended the Thousand Phantom Palm and was at the 8th level of Jin Qi. Lin Shui could not be underestimated. Her beautiful face was not a pure flower vase. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind. Her posture was elegant. Thousands of palm prints filled the sky. As the palm prints fell, cultivators fell down one by one. Sky Tyrant Fist. Zhang Haotian was as cold as before. He used the strongest battle skill of the Xian martial ancestor, carrying a domineering aura. Every time he attacked, a disciple would be sent flying. Mui and the others were also ruthless. In the blink of an eye, they had killed several people. This was a life and death battle. Being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. Therefore, if they could kill in one strike, they would not attack a second time. Swoosh! LV Peng took out a bag of medicinal powder and sprinkled it in front of him. In an instant, a pervasive fragrance spread out. The cultivators who smelled it first fell down. Putong, putong. Several cultivators fell to the ground. Kill! LV Peng grabbed a long sword from somewhere and instantly attacked the cultivators who fell to the ground. The sword light flashed, and the cultivators fell silent. The people led by Ziqin were all powerful existences. They could kill cultivators of the same level in seconds. But at this moment, there were too many people here. When one group died, another group would appear. They were like locusts, not afraid of death at all. These cultivators were well trained and did not fear death. Moreover, there were many of them, far exceeding the expectations of Ziqin and the others. In the valley, there were nearly 100 disciples of the three sects gathered together. At this moment, they were anxiously watching the battle at the valley entrance. They were waiting for Ziqin and the others to open a gap so that they could take the opportunity to escape. Haha, Ziqin, today you will definitely die. All of you will die. Ling Qin laughed. He looked at the people waiting for an opportunity in the valley, his eyes full of disdain. He did not participate in the battle because he was the commander. There was no need for him to participate in the current battle. Ling Fei was in front of Ling Qin. His eyes were full of hatred as he looked at Ziqin and Zhang Haoyin. He was thinking that even if they died, he would give them a final blow. The battle was very fierce. Broken limbs flew everywhere. Every time Ziqin attacked, one or several people would fall. Endless blood splattered everywhere. He had long been dyed red with blood. His killing intent surged, and his vigorous blood, qi, soared to the sky. He was like a 10th level vicious beast. He did not bother to defend and directly killed his way forward. Everywhere he went, he left a bloody path filled with corpses. Ling Qin died. Ziqin's killing intent was boundless. He directly pointed at Ling Qin. He knew the principle of killing the leader first. At this moment, only by killing Ling Qin could this battle end. Behind Ziqin, Su Mengyao and Xue Lin followed closely behind like his left and right hands. The two were tall, graceful, and extremely agile. At this moment, they were on a killing spree. Their beautiful faces were full of frost, and many blood plums had already appeared on their white clothes. With Ziqin as the leader, the three of them formed a sharp cone and directly tore apart the line of defense of the martial ancestors' disciples. As for Muyi and the others, they were already injured. Although they could barely keep up, they were already injured. However, their attacks were still fierce and ruthless. Surround them. Ling Qin calmly commanded. Ziqin killed many people, but he had more people. Many of the cultivators stepped forward again, surrounding Ziqin. Their killing intent soared, and the light of their swords flashed. At the edge of the valley, the battle was very fierce. Damn it! Why are these people so stupid? After so long, they still can't open up a path of blood. Are we going to wait here for so many of us? That's right. This Ziqin was so arrogant before, but now he's scared of the martial ancestors' disciples. The ones who spoke were the Nimbus martial ancestors' disciples. Although they were from the same sect, they did not like Ziqin. At this moment, they were standing behind the crowd, mocking and ridiculing him. Going back means death. It's better for him to open up a path of blood for us so that we can go back. It's also a contribution to the Nimbus martial ancestor. That's right. He killed so many of Senior Brother Qinfeng's people. He won't be able to live. At least in the last moments of his life, he can send us out. The Nimbus martial ancestors' disciples discussed animatedly. It was obvious that Ziqin's popularity was not good. These Nimbus martial ancestors, people, are F** king trash. Senior brother Zichin is fighting for his life in front of us. It's fine if you don't help, but you still dare to make sarcastic remarks. How can you live in this world? Why don't you *King kill yourselves? At the side, a burly man could not help but curse. What do you mean? A Nimbus martial ancestor's disciple glared at the burly man. P.S. Begging for flowers, begging for collection. By the way, times have changed. Almost everyone has a mobile phone, and there are more and more scammers. Today, I received a call from a scammer. His tone was so polite that he wanted to treat you like his father and grandfather. Once you exposed him, he immediately changed his attitude and insulted you before hanging up. Chapter 69. I say, why don't you *King kill yourselves? Why is the Nimbus martial ancestor here? You bunch of trash. The burly man glanced at them with disdain, then turned to the Xian martial ancestor and shouted, Disciples of the Xian martial ancestor, our senior brothers are fighting right now. Are we going to be like the bastards of the Nimbus martial ancestor, gossiping about our senior brothers behind their backs and hoping for our senior brothers to die? No way. As soon as the burly man finished speaking, a few of the disciples shouted. They obviously had the intention to fight long ago, but they were still hesitating. They were just waiting for a leader to appear. Now that the burly man had spoken, their fighting spirit rose. All right, since you are not the trash of the Nimbus martial ancestor, then follow me and kill our way out. The burly man shouted again. However, at this moment, someone pulled him back. What are you doing? Do you want to be the first one to die? Do you want to die? Wait until the martial ancestors' people are exhausted before you go out. The burly man turned his head and pointed at the other person's nose. Bullshit, I was going to deal with Su Yan before. But you bunch of sons of bitches stopped me. Now you are talking nonsense. When I get back to the sect, I will definitely report to the elders. I will kill trash like you first, regardless of the lives of my fellow brothers. Brothers, those who are not afraid of death are not sons of bitches. Follow me and kill our senior brothers. Kill those treacherous bastards of the martial ancestor. The burly man pulled out his weapon and rushed out of the crowd towards the battle outside the valley. Kill! I am not a son of bitch. After the first person, there was a second. Another disciple of the Xian martial ancestor rushed out. Go! Junior brothers, don't embarrass our Xian martial ancestor. A third disciple also rushed out. Ling Qin doesn't care about our lives. She wants to kill us all. Disciples of the Zhan martial ancestor, follow me and kill our way out. The disciples of the martial ancestor, who were lucky enough to survive, also rushed out. Kill! 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 In an instant, more and more people rushed towards the battle. At this moment, their bloodthirst was finally ignited. Senior brother Zichin, I am coming. Finally, some disciples of the spirit martial sect also rushed out. However, relatively speaking, there were fewer of them. There were only a few of them, but they were all hot-blooded people. Now that they had made their move, it meant that they had chosen to follow Zichin and go against Jinfeng. The disciples' bloodthirst was ignited, and they all joined the battle. Blood splattered everywhere, and severed limbs flew everywhere. Cultivators fell one after another. There was no doubt about the outcome of this battle. The defensive line formed by the combat martial ancestor sect was finally shattered, leaving a huge gap. Senior brother Zichin, let's go. Senior brother Mui, let's go. Esco, go, 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 go. I goes as of you. Of TS, go, leave a single one of them. TTSS, leave. You can go. Mui, LV Peng, and the others also said. If senior brother doesn't leave, then we won't leave either. Once their blood had been ignited, it was naturally impossible to retreat quickly, so everyone chose to fight side by side. Idiot, if you don't leave now, when will you? What a bunch of fools. The defensive line has already been torn apart. Let's leave quickly and get away from here. Charge! Kill our way out. Let's carve out a bloody path. "Brothers, charge!" Now that the defensive line had been torn apart, the disciples who had been waiting to see what would happen finally grasped this opportunity. Their morale soared, and they roared as they charged at the defensive line. "How shameless! This bunch of trash! We worked so hard to tear open the defensive line, but they want to rush out." The disciples were sullen, but since Ziqin and the others didn't want to leave, they didn't want to leave either. At this moment, all their sullenness turned into battle strength. One by one, the battle martial ancestors' disciples fell in front of the crowd. Led by the Nimbus martial ancestor, the disciples rushed out of the defensive line with fighting spirit. However, in an instant they were met with a powerful attack from the battle martial ancestors' disciples, led by Ling Qin and assisted by Xiaqiu. With the flashing of swords and sabers, the gap was instantly filled up. The previous disciples all retreated. Of the dozens of people who had rushed out, half of them had been killed. Only the other half had returned. "Damn it, this Ling Qin is so despicable. We were prepared for this. Ziqin isn't a good person either. He actually didn't rush out. He should have expected this. How despicable. He's blatantly trying to harm others. He's really vicious. Ziqin, I'll remember this. Just you wait." Everyone turned back with anger in their hearts. They all muttered in low voices as they retreated back into the valley. Kill. With the addition of Ling Qin, although the battle had changed, the general direction of the battle remained the same. Ziqin raised his butcher's knife and charged out of the crowd with Su Mengyao and Lin Shui. "Ziqin, prepare to die." Xiaqiu suddenly exploded. His surging energy surged as he struck out with a violent attack. Ziqin's body was covered in a silver light, surrounded by streaks of lightning. With a shift of his feet, the ethereal steps appeared. The black sword in his hand drew a silver light as he rushed forward. In the midst of this endless slaughter, Ziqin's attack perfectly combined the ethereal steps and the light stream sword. It had become a fusion battle technique. This attack was like a lightning bolt. The silver light was like a stream of light, yet also like a lightning bolt. It arrived in the blink of an eye. Puff! The long sword drew a silver light, and Ziqin had already appeared behind Xiaqiu. The latter's pupils dilated as a cut appeared on his neck. The surging energy around him silently dissipated. Gulp! Xiaqiu's head rolled down as blood spurted out. The second disciple of the battle martial ancestor had died. If the battle martial ancestor's disciples were indifferent to the deaths of so many disciples, then the death of the second disciple, Xiaqiu, was too shocking. Furthermore, it was a one-hit kill. At this moment, the disciples of the battle martial ancestor, who had made up their minds, were shaken. Kill! At the same time, Zhang Haotian and the rest had also killed a few of the more powerful disciples. The miserable screams made one's hair stand on end. Kill! Kill everyone! Don't retreat! Ling Qin shouted. Their backbone was still there. Ling Qin! Ziqin roared as he rushed toward Ling Qin. Along the way, he killed one disciple after another. The two of them engaged in an intense battle. Surging energy swirled around them, and explosions sounded out continuously. Around the two of them, an energy storm was formed. No one dared to move forward. Thunderbolt finger. A thunderbolt suddenly appeared. It was like a thunder dragon roaring, bringing with it a terrifying might. Heavenly Tyrant Fist. Ling Qin also knew this powerful move. Her fists were extremely fierce. Boom! A loud explosion sounded out as boundless energy surged out. The energy around the two of them started to weaken after going berserk. Everyone could see a resplendent silver light shooting towards Ling Qin with the speed of light and a sharp sword intent. Man and sword as one. Man and sword as one. The fusion battle technique appeared again. The silver light flashed, and everything came to an end. The boundless energy dissipated and the dust settled. Ziqin arrived behind Ling Qin. The latter was motionless. His eyes were filled with astonishment, and there was an obvious red mark on his neck. The battle had stopped, and everyone was looking at Zi Qin and Ling Qin, paying close attention to their every move. Pum! Ling Chen's eyes brightened. His body fell backward. In the end, he did not manage to block Zi Chen's powerful attack. Senior brother Ling Chen. How is this possible? Senior brother Ling Chen. Ling Chen was already dead. Now, it was time to beat the dog while it was down. Ling Fei, since you schemed against me, today will be the day you die. Ling Fei's legs had not recovered for long before they were broken by Zhang Haoyan again. Kacha, kacha! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. Zhang Haoyan was venting his dissatisfaction. Finally, under Ling Fei's continuous begging, he finished him off. After that, Qin Chi, Tai Kai, and the rest did not escape. They all died in Zhang Haoyan's hands. After the defeat of the martial ancestor, the disciples fled. Everyone chased after them. Apart from the fact that they deserved it, they were more of a burden. Previously, when the beasts arrived at the valley, the spiritual herbs they were guarding were taken away by the battle martial ancestor's disciples. All the rewards were in their bags. Zi Chen took away Ling Chen and Xiaqiu's bags. Although there weren't any 1,000-year-old herbs, there were plenty of herbs that were more than 500 years old. This time, many disciples of the three sects had died. Everyone had gained a lot. Among them, Zi Chen's contribution points had already exceeded 3 digits. More than 1,000 contribution points could be exchanged for more than 500 true Qi Dan. This was an extremely frightening number. The others had also gained a lot. In the midst of the chaos, the other disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor also took advantage of the chaos to escape. They were not idiots. Zi Qin had killed Ling Qin and was very strong. It was very likely that he would kill them instead. After all, they had spoken rudely before. Most importantly, they were Chun Feng's people. When the spiritual herbal garden opened this time, not all the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor had come. This had a lot to do with Qin Feng. He had sent out 11 true Qi stage 10 disciples with the intention of killing Zi Qin. However, he never expected that all of them would be killed by Zi Qin. At this time, although Zi Chen was only at true Qi stage 9, his combat strength was enough to earn him the title of the strongest person under the Xiantian realm. Time passed quickly. It was not long before the spiritual herbal garden closed. Zi Qin had gained a lot. He was swallowing stalk after stalk of spiritual herbs to increase his combat strength. After seeing Su Yan's combat strength, Zi Qin knew that there was a big gap between him and Qin Feng. Therefore, he could only work hard and cultivate. Stalk after stalk of spiritual herbs disappeared in front of Zi Qin. They were refined by him and stabilized his cultivation. At the same time, after reaching true Qi stage 9, Zi Qin found that his body had become like an ocean. If he wanted to break through again, he would have to fill the entire ocean. The amount of energy required was almost indescribable. 100-year spiritual herbs were no longer of any use. Spiritual herbs that were more than 500 years old only had a little bit of effect. Zi Chen's cultivation speed became very slow. Another morning, when the scheduled half-year time limit had arrived, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the spiritual herbal garden. The heaven and earth trembled as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting apart. One by one, black cracks appeared in the spiritual herbal garden. This is the exit. The spiritual herbal garden is about to close. Let's get out quickly. Chapter 70. On the peak of the mountain, the 3 elders were meditating. At their level, it was normal for them to meditate for months or years. Half a year was too normal for them. Ling Yin, Qin Feng, and Wu Hong were not very patient. After the first time they met, they complimented each other. After half a year, they started to have some ideas. Calculating the time, the people who entered the spiritual herbal gardens should be coming out soon. Thus, Qin Feng said, Ling Yin, Wu Hong, the spiritual herbal gardens will be closing soon. Which sect do you think will win? After half a year, the three of them no longer called each other senior brothers. They called each other by their names. Wu Hong smiled. After thinking for a while, he said, "It's hard to say. The three sects have their own strengths. It should depend on luck. There's no need to guess. This time, our combat sect will naturally be able to obtain first place," Ling Yin said confidently without even thinking. "That may not be true. Our Nimbus martial ancestor has many strong people too." Ling Yan's confidence made Qin Feng very unhappy. The people who entered the spiritual herbal gardens this time were all his own people. The 10 disciples of the inner sect were also very strong. There was no reason for them not to win. Haha, then let's wait and see. The battle martial ancestor will definitely win. As for your 2 sects, you can fight for the other 2 spots. Ling Yun smiled. The battle martial ancestor had been planning for decades. He was very confident. Wu Hong only smiled and did not say anything. However, Qin Feng was unhappy. He said, "Ling Yin, you are too confident. Don't be overconfident. If you don't believe me, we can make a small bet." "How?" "How about a low-grade primordial stone?" Ling Yun smiled. Low-grade primordial stone. Chen Feng's expression changed. There was spiritual energy in heaven and earth. Cultivators absorbed it and turned it into true qi, breaking through one realm after another. True qi transformed into Xiantian true qi. Then it changed again and again. Finally, it turned into elemental energy and reached the true energy realm. There was elemental energy in heaven and earth. True energy realm cultivators could absorb and refine it directly. There was also some elemental energy that was too dense and turned into a solid state. It was called primordial stones. Primeval stones were the crystallization of true yuan and were the favorite of true yuan experts. It was also the currency of the sky martial continent. However, this kind of currency was something that true energy cultivators were unable to come into contact with. Even Xiantian cultivators would find it difficult to obtain a complete low-grade primordial stone. The majority of people used broken primordial stones. As the name implied, some broken primordial stones had impure energy. For someone in the Xiantian realm, this was definitely not a small gamble. It could be said to be a huge gamble. A piece of low-grade primordial stone could be exchanged for at least 100 pieces of primordial stone fragments. An ordinary Xiantian realm expert would have around 10 pieces of primordial stone fragments, which could be considered a tycoon. A low-grade yuan stone. Even the usually indifferent Wu Hong's expression changed slightly. This wager was far beyond his imagination. "Not bad, a little gambling is fun." Ling Yun nodded. He was very satisfied with the changes in their expressions. "This is a small bet?" Qin Feng was unable to speak, but he did not want to lose face in front of Ling Yin. He could only nod and say, "All right, a small bet it is. A low-grade yuan stone it is." "Wu Hong, what about you?" Ling Yin looked at Wu Hong. "Haha, you guys go ahead. I won't participate." Wu Hong shook his head and laughed. "Why, Wu Hong? Could it be that you are so poor that you can't even take out a low-grade yuan stone? Has your Xian martial ancestor fallen to such a state?" Chen Feng's eyes flashed with disdain. He had just lost face in front of Ling Yin, but now he had regained it from Wu Hong. "Wu Hong, let's play. A small bet is fun, but a big bet is harmful to the body. We're just fooling around. A mere low-grade yuan stone is not worth so much. Everyone is just having fun." Ling Yin also said, but the disdain in his expression was very obvious. "All right then, let's play." Wu Hong finally nodded. "Haha, that's right." Ling Yin laughed, already calculating the profits in his heart. The 3 elders sat cross-legged in the distance, not saying a word. It was as if they did not notice the 3 people gambling. After a long time, the elders who were sitting cross-legged suddenly opened their eyes. "Half a year is up. The disciples of the three sects should be back soon. On the mountain peak, there was a sudden rumbling sound. The space began to distort, and a torrential energy surged wildly. Ling Yin and the other two retreated. This energy was too terrifying. This spiritual herbal garden is indeed mysterious. When it is opened, it requires a lot of true origin energy. When it is closed, a strange energy appears. Yes, the spiritual herbal garden is too mysterious. It is a pity that we cannot enter to investigate. Half a year is too short. I just don't know how much they have gained this time. The space was distorted, as if a huge force was tearing it apart. With a chi sound, the space on the mountain peak was shattered and a pitch-black crack appeared. Boundless energy filled the mountain peak. Ling Yin and the others retreated again. The true origin energy shield around the three elders made a chi-chi sound. The crack spread and it was pitch black. It was like a huge mouth of the netherworld. It was incomparably deep, and it was also like a bottomless hole with no end. After the raging energy dissipated, the space finally stabilized. The large crack appeared on the mountain peak, followed by figures. Half a year had passed, and the people who entered the spiritual herbal garden finally appeared. When they entered, many cultivators rushed in like a tide. When they came out, they were scattered and sparse. The number of cultivators was greatly reduced. Coupled with the deliberate calculations of the Jean Martial ancestor, only 1/10 of the cultivators who entered the spiritual herbal garden survived. In other words, only a few dozen out of hundreds of people could come out alive. The first to come out were the disciples of the Nimbus Martial ancestor. They were in fear in the spiritual herbal garden. They hid all day, afraid that Zi Chan would come to kill them. When the large crack opened, they were the first to rush out. Their faces were filled with panic. They only calmed down when they walked in front of the great elder. The first elder furrowed his brows and had a bad feeling in his heart. The disciples of the Nimbus Martial ancestor appeared sparsely. There were only a few dozen of them. Almost all of them were filled with fear and panic. These people were all at level 8 or 7. There was almost no one at level 9 true chi. As for the 10 disciples of the inner sect, who were at level 10 true chi, none of them appeared. Shen Feng, your people don't seem to be in a good mood. The 10 disciples of the inner sect didn't appear? Ling Yin smiled faintly. However, he was very dissatisfied. According to their calculations, the number of people from the Nimbus Martial ancestor who could come out alive would not be more than 20. Don't be anxious. The strong ones always appear last. That's the only way to show up. Chin Feng snorted. He had a bad feeling in his heart. The disciples appeared one after another. In the end, the disciples of the Nimbus Martial ancestor stopped at 38. Following them were the disciples of the Jean Martial ancestor. They were even worse. When they walked out of the crack, their faces were filled with fear. Their clothes were tattered and covered in blood. Some of them even had multiple knife and sword wounds on their bodies. What's going on? Elder Gu of the Battle Martial sect, who was previously calm, had a slight change in his expression at this moment. Although there had been battles when the spiritual herbal gardens had opened in the past, it had definitely not been like today, where everyone was injured. Some of them even had more than 10 saber wounds on their bodies. Even after seeing him, the elder, they could not calm down. Battles were allowed in the spiritual herbal garden, but they were all for the sake of snatching spiritual herbs. It was far from what happened today, where everyone had more than 10 knife wounds. How was this snatching spiritual herbs? It was simply silencing them. Haha, Ling Yin, your sect's disciples seem to be in a bad situation. They are all about to die. Chan Feng mocked at the right time. Ling Yin's face darkened. He did not speak. The situation seemed to have changed. Now was not the time to ask. The disciples of the Jean Martial ancestor came out one after another. Then they were divided into 2 groups. One group was filled with fear. Some of them were still bleeding. There were very few of them, so they gathered together. The other group was glaring at each other angrily. There were about the same number of people. This was a conflict between sections. Ling Yan's heart sank. After waiting for a long time, the people he was waiting for did not come out. Ling Chen, Ling Fei, Xie Qiu, Qin Chong, and the others did not appear. The situation had changed. Ling Yan's face also changed. If this failed, he would be responsible for a lot of things. After the Zhan martial ancestor, it was the Xian martial ancestor's disciples. The Xian martial ancestor had a large number of disciples. After the disciples appeared, they were all angry. Each of them held a long knife in their hands. Some of the knives were still dripping with blood. They looked murderously in the direction of the Zhan martial ancestor. What the hell is going on? The three elders were puzzled. They did not know what had happened. Moreover, there was something strange about this. Up until now, no one above level 9 of the genuine Qi had appeared. Ling Yan's face darkened. He had a guilty conscience. The other two also had a bad feeling in their hearts. But then another figure appeared. Liang Guang of level 10 of the genuine Qi had appeared. This was the first person above level 9 of the genuine Qi realm. Moreover, Liang Guang's appearance also indicated that a true expert had appeared. Then Mui LV Peng and some of the Xian martial ancestors' experts appeared. However, the Xian martial ancestors' 11 genuine Qi realm experts had entered. This time, only 5 of them had come out. A group of people came out and walked towards Elder Zhang. Then they gathered together. However, when they looked at the Zhan martial ancestor, their gazes were very unfriendly. How could this be? Seeing Mui and the others appear, Ling Yun could not help but exclaim. The situation in front of him was not normal. It was far from the plan. Phew! Wu Hong breathed a sigh of relief. He did not care about the outcome of the bet. He just did not want anything to happen to Mui and the others. Ling Yun wanted to question Ling Qin. At this moment, he was waiting for her to appear. Qin Feng was also waiting for Su Yen to appear. He wanted to ask him how things were going. Thus, under the watchful eyes of the two, another figure walked out of the big crack. The person in the lead was a cold-looking youth. His whole body exuded an aura that repelled people thousands of miles away. It was Zhang Haoyin. Behind Zhang Haoyin was an extremely ordinary youth. Then, everyone's eyes lit up. 2 great beauties, Lin Shui and Su Mengyao, walked out of the crack. Their figures were slim and graceful. One was like a lotus, the other was like a goddess. They immediately attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 71. Zi Qin was wearing a white shirt. He was handsome and his eyes were clear. He exuded an aura of tranquility as he slowly walked out of the crack. Zi Qin. Qin Feng's expression changed the moment he saw Zi Qin. He was enraged. That damned Su Yan, he actually failed to complete his task. He's still alive. Qin Feng's emotions were the same as Ling Yan's when he saw Zhang Haoyin. They were both burning with anger. The great elder was also surprised when he saw Zi Qin, but he quickly regained his composure. The 3 elders looked at the crack calmly. 2 of the 3 future sect leaders were enraged as they stared at the crack, waiting for their people to appear. However, something unexpected happened in the next moment. After Zi Chen appeared, the huge crack began to tremble. The space distorted once again, and after a few breaths, the black crack disappeared. There was only one explanation for this. There were no more humans inside. What? At that instant, both the elders and the 3 future sect leaders were startled. When they entered, there were hundreds of people, but now less than 100 people came out. Moreover, none of the true experts from the Battle Martial Ancestor and the Nimbus Martial Ancestor came out. What's going on? There were dozens of experts who did not come out. The 3 elders could no longer remain calm and began to ask questions. It's the people from the Battle Martial Ancestor. They killed everyone. It's Ziqin. Ziqin killed the 10 disciples of the inner sect. Reporting to the elders, Ling Chen led the people from the battle martial ancestor to set us up and kill everyone. Ziqin and Zhang Haoyin killed Zheng Hua and the rest. Reporting to the great elder, Ziqin colluded with people from the outer sect and killed his fellow disciples. The crowd complained one after another. The scene was extremely chaotic. Everyone was talking excitedly, and the 3 elders seemed to have understood something. Ziqin colluded with Zhang Haoyin and used a vicious scheme to harm the 10 disciples of the inner sect. He also killed many innocent brothers and sisters. I hope the Grand Elder will uphold justice. A disciple of True Energy Stage 8 walked out and pointed at Ziqin. He had provoked everyone in the spiritual herbal garden, and now that he had come out, he was the first one to complain. That's right, Ziqin harbored evil intentions. For the sake of 1,000-year elixir, he didn't hesitate to kill everyone. Another disciple of the Nimbus martial ancestor pointed out, Elder, please uphold justice. Ziqin is harboring evil intentions. One by one, the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor appeared. Relying on the presence of the Grand Elder and Chen Feng, they began to casually slander Ziqin. Logically speaking, there was no enmity between the 2 sides, so there was no need for them to do this. However, Ziqin's limelight in the spiritual herbal garden was too great. Moreover, he appeared to be righteous and affectionate. On the other hand, they became heartless and were pointed at by others. Therefore, when they came out, they were jealous and wanted to harm Ziqin. Everyone's accusations made Ziqin the target of public criticism. Lin Shui was so angry that her face was ashen. She clenched her teeth and wanted to bite these people to death. Su Mengyao, on the other hand, was very calm. She was even calmer than Ziqin. The Grand Elder and Elder Ji's faces were gloomy as they looked coldly at Ziqin. Ling Yun and Qin Feng's gazes were also very unfriendly. Elders, it's not like that. Ling Chen used 1,000-year-old spiritual herb as bait to lure us into the valley. Then, she attracted hundreds of vicious beasts to kill us. It was Ziqin who killed the Xiantian demonic beasts and saved us. Otherwise, the people of the Nimbus martial ancestor and Xian martial ancestor wouldn't have survived. Just when the situation was unfavorable for Ziqin, Mui suddenly walked out and defended Ziqin. Ziqin's eyes were filled with gratitude. Ling Qin is a wolf with evil intentions. She plotted against everyone, even her own sex people. Liang Guang also walked out. 3 elders, don't listen to their nonsense. If it wasn't for Ziqin, we would already be dead. At this time, we should investigate Ling Qin. Lu Peng also spoke up for Ziqin. The 3 of them were very important existences. Their words were far more effective than others. After that, several disciples who had fought side by side with Ziqin spoke up for Ziqin. In an instant, Ziqin became the focus of attention. Almost everything that happened in the spiritual herbal garden was related to him. There were many important people who testified for Ziqin. In an instant, everyone's spearhead turned to the Zhan martial ancestor. Where is Ling Qin? Elder Ji's face was cold. Hearing everyone's words, he finally understood why the disciples on his side were divided into 2 groups. Ling Qin is dead. His head was chopped off by Ziqin. A disciple said loudly, looking very proud. Ziqin again. The 3 elders looked at Ziqin again. At this time, Ziqin's aura was restrained and Abdomen's aura was sealed. There was no trace of aura, so they couldn't see anything special. Ziqin became the focus of attention. He was praised to the top of the mountain. At the same time, he also became the target of public criticism. Many people bore grudges against him, so much so that no one cared about Zhang Haoyin, who had killed as many people as Ziqin. Ziqin didn't defend himself. He didn't need to. He had already thought of this. Almost everyone in the Nimbus martial ancestor was on Zi Chen's side. Zi Chen didn't expect them to speak up for him. If they had a conscience and didn't say anything, it would be the greatest help they could give him. Ling Yin, what exactly is going on? Elder Gu turned to look at Ling Yin, whose expression was extremely ugly. Obviously, he didn't know about this matter. Elder, I'm not too sure about the details. However, there are many suspicious points in this matter. We need to investigate thoroughly. Ling Yun braced himself and said, "Humph." Elder Goose snorted coldly. "I'll settle this with you when we get back." Elder Zhang from the Xian martial ancestor spoke at the right time. "If that's the case, we should go back and ask carefully. We must have an explanation. We must not let go of who is right and who is wrong. As for now, let's see what their harvest is." Elder Zhang's voice was indifferent, but his tone was very cold. There was a sense of determination in his voice. "My disciples can't die in vain." The disciples of the three sects separated and took out spiritual herbs. These were used to exchange for contribution points. It was also to determine which of the three sects had the most harvest and who was the biggest winner. Among the three sects, the Battle Martial sect had the least number of disciples. Many of their disciples' spirit herbs had been snatched away, although there were a few outstanding disciples who took out a lot of spirit herbs that made people's eyes light up. Compared to the other two sects, whether it was in terms of quality or quantity, they were much worse. There were more than 100 spiritual herbs scattered around. Among them, there were 20 spiritual herbs that were more than 500 years old, which made people's eyes light up. Next was the Nimbus martial ancestor. Almost all of the spiritual herbs on this side were gathered on Zi Chen's side. Miao Kong, Lin Shui, Su Mengyao, and Zi Chen all took out 5 spiritual herbs that were more than 500 years old. The dense spiritual energy and the sparkling spiritual herbs made everyone's eyes light up. There were more than 20 spiritual herbs in a row. Next, the other disciples also took out spiritual herbs. Among them, there were also 500 years old spiritual herbs. The total number was more than 200. Among them, there were more than 5,500 years old spiritual herbs. The great elder was very satisfied. Chen Feng, who had a gloomy expression, also nodded his head. His expression relaxed a lot. "You're going to lose." Chen Feng was very confident. Ling Yan's expression was very ugly. Their defeat against the martial ancestor was already set. As for Wu Hong, he was very calm. He even had a smile on his face. This was because someone had secretly told him that his side would definitely win. Next were the disciples of the Xian martial ancestor. Once Mui took out his item, it was a dazzling light. He took out more than 500 years old spiritual herbs. Next, Liang Guang, LV Peng, and the others did not lose out. The other disciples of the 10th floor also took out a lot of spiritual herbs. The disciples who had fought side by side with Zi Chen all had great harvests. At this moment, their items were naturally extraordinary. Just the 500 years old spiritual herbs that they took out were comparable to those of the Nimbus martial ancestor. Chen Feng's expression became gloomy again. The great elder's expression was also very ugly. Next, the Xian martial ancestors' spiritual herbs were all taken out. The counting was completed. The Xian martial ancestor also had more than 200 spiritual herbs. Among them, the 500 years old spiritual herbs were 10 more than the Nimbus martial ancestors. In this trip to the spiritual herbal garden, the Xian martial ancestor had won. The 3 elders were not sore losers. At this moment, they were ready to announce the winner. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. 3 elders, wait a moment. The elders turned their heads and looked at a disciple. This person was the only true energy stage 9 disciple of the Nimbus martial ancestor. He was wearing a blood-stained white robe. After respectfully bowing to the elders, he turned his head and looked at Zi Chen. He coldly said, "Zi Chen, Where is your 1,000-year spiritual herb? Why didn't you take it out? 1,000-year spiritual herb? Everyone was in an uproar. Only now did they remember that Qin had subdued the giant python and obtained the 1,000-year spiritual herb. However, he did not take it out today. Qin Feng and the others could not help but pay attention to the issue that they had overlooked. Qin had killed a Xiantian-level demonic beast. The 3 elders all looked at him, including the 3 future sect leaders. Qin was once again the center of attention. That's right, Qin. What are you thinking? Why didn't you hand over the 1,000-year spiritual herb? Qin, you are really selfish. The Nimbus martial ancestor is about to win, but you secretly hid the 1,000-year spiritual herb. How can a person be so selfish? That's right. How can a person like you be the disciple of the Nimbus martial ancestor? Hand over the 1,000-year spiritual herb and let us win. We will get double the contribution. Don't be so selfish. Otherwise, you will be unlucky. A group of disciples stepped forward and shouted at Qin. These people were very weak, only at the 7th or 8th layer. If it were not for the elders present, they would not even dare to fart. However, at this moment, they were aggressive and righteous. For them, although spiritual herbs were strong, they were not easy to absorb. It was far less cost-effective than the contribution points of true Qi Dan. However, not everyone handed over their spiritual herbs. There were always disciples who secretly hid some. This was because in this world, there was not only one Nimbus martial ancestor. The outside world was very vast. The contribution points of the Nimbus martial ancestor were not shared across the entire continent. There were many disciples who secretly hid spiritual herbs. At this moment, they were all questioning Qin. They were righteous and aggressive. When did the Nimbus martial ancestor stipulate that disciples must hand over all their spiritual herbs? At this moment, Su Mengyao indifferently said, "How shameless! Did you all hand over all your spiritual herbs?" Lin Shui angrily said, Chapter 72. Su Mingyao's white robe fluttered in the wind as she stood beside Qin. Her expression was calm, and her words shocked everyone. She was originally an expert. She had a Xiantian battle skill and was at Xiantian realm level 9. Her true combat strength was even stronger than Mui's. It was just that in the spiritual herbal garden, Qin's brilliance had completely overshadowed Su Mingyao's. But after coming out, no one dared to ignore her. This is not the same. This concerns the victory or defeat of our Nimbus martial ancestor. This concerns the prestige of our Nimbus martial ancestor. That's right. We could have one. But what if we lose because of Qin's selfishness? Others will say that our Nimbus martial ancestor is a bunch of selfish people. That's right. As a member of the Nimbus martial ancestor, we must fight for the Nimbus martial ancestor, not for our own selfishness. Another Nimbus martial ancestor's righteous member spoke. His words were filled with righteousness, and every word he spoke was about the reputation of the Nimbus martial ancestor. You're not selfish. You're a bunch of trash raised by sons of bitches. You're so righteous now. Why didn't you show up in the spiritual herbal garden before? Trash like dogs. How dare you talk about righteousness in front of Senior Qin? Many of the black martial ancestors' disciples began to ridicule. Although they deliberately lowered their voices, everyone present was an expert and naturally heard it clearly. In an instant, these people's faces turned ugly. All the elixirs obtained from the elixir gardens this time, as long as they were taken out, would be exchanged for contribution points. It was not a simple competition. To Qin, the use of contribution points could not be compared to a 2,000 years old water spirit flower. Even if he was given more contribution points, it would be useless. Moreover, 1,000-year-old spirit herbs were very attractive to Xiantian experts. Qin did not want the spirit herbs he obtained to help Chun Feng break through. Now you're talking about righteousness. Why didn't I see you guys talking about it before? A bunch of cowards. Su Mingyao's indifferent expression turned cold in an instant. A powerful aura emanated from her body. She said, "Who are you? What qualifications do you have to speak to me?" Ninth level true energy was so oppressive that the others found it hard to breathe. Only the ninth level true energy cultivator from before was still holding on. At this moment, a tyrannical aura similar to that of a level 10 vicious beast rushed over. Zi Chen's eyes turned cold, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The latter's face changed drastically, and he staggered back, looking very embarrassed. Laughter and mockery rang out from the side. Zi Chen's popularity in the Black Martial Ancestor was much higher than that of the Nimbus Martial Ancestor. Zi Chen, are you willing to contribute the 1,000-year-old spirit herb? The sect can give you double the contribution points reward. Right at this moment, Qin Feng suddenly spoke. He just so happened to be at the critical moment of his breakthrough, and he really needed a 1,000-year-old spirit herb like this. His expression was very gentle, and his words were like a spring breeze. He was like a very competent senior brother. He didn't use his power to oppress others, but lowered his status to negotiate with Zichen. Senior brother Qin Feng really doesn't put on airs. He actually speaks like this to a scum like Zichen. Zichen, hurry up and agree. Senior brother Qin Feng talking to you is a blessing you've accumulated over several lifetimes. Zichen sneered in his heart. He could already see the killing intent in Chen Feng's eyes. The reason why the 10 inner disciples attacked him was because of Chen Feng's orders. Now that Qin Feng had spoken, he was even more certain that the other party needed a 1,000-year-old spirit herb. Therefore, he didn't even think and decisively said, "Sorry, I don't want to hand over the spirit herb. I want to eat it like a meal." His words shocked everyone. Eating a 1,000-year-old spirit herb like a meal? He was purposely trying to anger Qin Feng. This Zi Qin is really strong. Eating a 1,000-year-old spirit herb like a meal. Haha! This is a brilliant move. That Qin Feng is a sinister person. After offending senior brother Qin Feng, Zi Qin is dead for sure. Once he returns to the sect, he will die. Some people were happy, while others sneered. However, since Zi Chen didn't hand over the 1,000-year-old spirit herb, no one made things difficult for Zichen. This was because the rules didn't allow for coercion. Elder Zhang let out a sigh of relief. He found Zichen to be very pleasing to the eye. The other disciples of the Xian martial ancestor worshipped Zichen even more. Zichen, if you can't stay in the Nimbus martial ancestor, you can come to our Xian martial ancestor. Our door will be open for you day and night. Wu Hong whispered in Zi Chen's ear as he walked past him. When we return, we will definitely give you our winnings. The first elder and Elder Go clasped their hands. Although they lost a small bet, they didn't lose much with the support of the sect. They weren't sore losers, but the key was that they lost and lost face. To them, face was much more important than the winnings. Therefore, their faces were very unnatural at this moment. As for Chen Feng and Ling Yin, they were even more so. They handed Wu Hong 2 low-grade spirit stones in front of everyone. The spirit stones were crystal clear and emitted dense true yuan. Wu Hong accepted them with a smile and clasped his hands. "Thank you for your generous help, senior brothers." Instantly, the two were furious. Qin Feng didn't want to bet at first, but they ridiculed him. Now they had to give him 2 low-grade spirit stones. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. The two of them replied in a flat tone. "All right, when we return, everyone's spirit herbs can be exchanged for double contribution points." As the biggest winner, the Black Martial Ancestor's Elder Zhang was very happy. After so many trips to the spiritual herbal garden, the Black Martial Ancestor finally won once. As soon as he finished speaking, cheers rang out. The disciples of the Black Martial Ancestor jumped in joy. So selfish. Selfish, despicable person. This kind of person is the shame of the Nimbus martial ancestor. Lower your voice, he won't live for long anyway. Compared to the black martial ancestor, the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor and the Jean martial ancestor were much more depressed. Among them, the disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor pointed their spears at Zichen and whispered sarcastically, "Humph, these people are really shameless. They were like this in the spiritual herbal garden, and now they are like this again." Lin Shui said unhappily, if it wasn't for Zichen holding her back, she would have already shouted and argued with those righteous people. Accept your fate. There are people like them everywhere. They are afraid of death, but they want to get more benefits. Every one of them has spirit herbs. This is human nature. Miao Kong was quite open-minded. He smiled faintly. What Zichen needs to think about now is how to face Qin Feng when we return. You are too outstanding in the spiritual herbal garden. You must be careful of their little tricks, Miao Kong warned. Zichen is a genius, and his strength has increased in the spiritual herbal garden. The elders of the Nimbus martial ancestor know about it. They will focus on training him. Who would want to go against him? Su Mengyao suddenly said. Hee, I hope so. Miao Kong smiled. He didn't refute, but he didn't care. Zichen nodded. The spiritual herbal garden had closed, and the mountain peak had returned to normal. It would be at least a few decades before it opened again. The three sects were already preparing to return. This was the biggest loss they had suffered since entering the spiritual herbal garden. Fortunately, there were many disciples in the three sects, so this loss was still acceptable. Zichen, we will meet again. The three sects left, and some familiar people also said goodbye to each other. Mui came, Lu Peng came, Liangguang came, and the others who had fought together in the bloody battle also came. This time when we return to the sect, we must be careful of Qin Feng. Zhang Haoyan warned. You too, be careful when facing him. If anything happens, you can send someone to the Nimbus martial ancestor to find me. Zichen also said, after going through life and death together, they could call each other brothers. They were real brothers, not brothers like Xiao Ken. The three sects finally left. On the way back to the Nimbus martial ancestor, the surviving disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor had already gathered around Qin Feng. They were recounting what happened in the spiritual herbal garden in their most elegant language. Although they were selfish, they were very smart. They knew what to say and what not to say. The 10 disciples of the inner sect were killed by Zichen. 9 of them died on the spot. Senior brother Su Yan escaped by luck and successfully broke through to the Xiantian realm. Speaking of Su Yan's breakthrough, Qin Feng was very surprised, but more than that, he lamented. Senior brother Su Yan broke through and came to find Zichen for revenge. He didn't expect the people of the black martial ancestor to suddenly intervene. After a fierce battle, just as Zichen was about to be killed, the Xiantian giant python appeared and bit senior brother Su Yan. Both sides fought fiercely in the lake. They deliberately hid the part about Su Mengyao and Lin Shui, because they knew that Qin Feng cared about them. If they said that part, they would all leave and let Su Yan kill them. Naturally, Qin Feng wouldn't let them go. It's a pity. Senior brother Su Yan is so powerful. If it was on land, he would naturally be able to kill the Xiantian giant python. But in the lake, senior brother Su Yan couldn't move freely. So after a fierce battle, senior brother Su Yan heavily injured the giant python, but he also died. Then Zichen fought the Xiantian giant python that was heavily injured. Qin Feng suddenly asked. Yes, the giant python was heavily injured, but it was still very strong. It swallowed Zichen in one gulp. But for some reason, Zichen didn't die. Instead, he became stronger. The giant python became an obedient beast. Everyone came in full detail. They told Qin Feng all the rumors they had heard, what they thought they had, and what they purposely slandered. They talked in bits and pieces for half a day. In the end, Zichen had already become a selfish traitor that colluded with outsiders, betrayed the sect, raped and plundered, and committed all sorts of crimes. In any case, he was a fellow that had done all sorts of bad things and no good, causing him to be infamous. This Zichen is too much, Qin Feng said coldly. He was very angry about Zichen's evil deeds. Senior brother, please punish the evil and give the Nimbus martial ancestor a beautiful blue sky. That's right. Give our Nimbus martial ancestor a beautiful future. This kind of evil person must be killed. Everyone begged and expressed their righteous sentiments. A day later, the great elder also learned about what happened in the spiritual herbal garden from Qin Feng. His face was full of surprise. We'll talk about this when we get back to the sect, the great elder said. Yes, Qin Feng nodded, then said, but I must get Zichen's spiritual herb. A few days later, everyone finally returned to the Nimbus martial ancestor. Su Mengyao breathed a sigh of relief. Zichen also felt the same. Since they didn't kill him outside, the chances of them killing him inside the sect would be even smaller. Chapter 73. The Nimbus martial ancestor was built at the foot of a mountain spanning over 10 li. Zichen finally let out a sigh of relief when he saw the Nimbus martial ancestor from afar. He had been on tenterhooks the whole time, fearing that Qin Feng would suddenly attack him. When they left, there were more than 100 disciples. They were in high spirits, full of confidence and dreams. But when they returned, there were only a few dozen of them, each of them looking like frosted eggplants. Nearly 90% of the disciples were injured or killed. Those who missed the trip to the spiritual herbal garden looked at each other in dismay. They were glad that they missed the trip to the spiritual herbal garden. With such a high death rate, the disciples who survived all gained a lot. After the spiritual herbs were turned in, they could be divided according to their contribution points. After returning, Qin Feng left with the head elder, and the disciples returned to their own places. After a few days, they would be able to receive their contribution points. The head elder distributed the list of spiritual herbs. Naturally, there were people who took care of everything. They began to register and verify the contribution points. Next, the head elder had to consider the matter of Zichen. Zichen's potential was truly terrifying. In just a year, he had actually broken through from stage 5 to stage 9. Moreover, his battle strength was even stronger than Su Yan's. The head elder had to admit that he was a genius. He had already seen it during the selection, but he never thought that his potential would be so great, far surpassing Qin Feng's. Unfortunately, such a genius was destined to not be nurtured because he was on the opposite side of Qin Feng. Head elder. Qin Feng walked in without anyone noticing. Why are you here? The head elder was surprised. I'm just worried, so I want to ask head elder how to deal with Zichen. Qin Feng asked, looking at the head elder with hope. The head elder hesitated. He hadn't decided yet. Head elder went to the martial ancestor and hasn't returned yet. Everything here is decided by the head elder. Zichen colluded with outsiders, killed his fellow disciples, and stole their spiritual herbs. This is already an ironclad fact. According to the rules of the sect, this is a capital offense. Qin Feng said in a low voice. The head elder frowned. This matter was not easy to handle. He didn't care about Zichen, but he cared about another person. What did Meng Yao say? What else can she say? She's still on Zichen's side. At the mention of Su Mengyao, Qin Feng's face was filled with anger. He said, unwillingly, but we have many witnesses. Zichen can't deny it at all. Besides, the sect leader isn't here. The elders can act first and report later. Let me think about it. You can leave first. The grand elder waved his hand, still hesitating. Qin Feng was very unwilling to give up. Before he walked out of the door, he turned back and said, Third Grandpa, the family has been waiting for news from us. Chen's talent is too high. If the sect master discovers him, there is a high possibility that he will be accepted as a disciple. Once he develops, he might threaten my position as the future sect master. I've already reached a bottleneck, and Chen's 1,000-year-old spirit herb is just enough for me to break through. After saying those words, Feng left. As for the hesitant first elder, his expression suddenly turned cold. After hearing what Feng said, he finally made his decision. After Chen came back, he locked himself in his room and refused to see anyone. In the sect, there were many people who wanted to harm him. Among them, Feng was the biggest threat. Chen had to be on guard. Therefore, he had to seize the time to improve his strength. Opening the bag, there was a dazzling array of spirit herbs. They shone brilliantly, and a dense spirit qi rushed out. In front of Chen, there were no less than 20 spirit herbs that were more than 500 years old. This was Chen's harvest this time. He had gained the most from the trip to the spiritual herbal garden. Just the spirit herbs he had swallowed far surpassed what the martial ancestor had obtained this time. Chen arranged the 20 spirit herbs one by one, then sat down cross-legged and swallowed them one by one. The current him didn't need any battle skills. He only needed to improve his strength. For others, it would take months to refine these spirit herbs. But for Chen, it only took a few days. During this period of time, Chen didn't eat or drink. He refined day and night. The speed of his strength increasing was extremely slow, but the speed of his body's transformation was extremely fast. Streams of silver energy entered his body, cleansing his meridians and causing his body to become stronger and tougher. Like sand being washed away by waves, Chen's body was washed away by the silver energy every day, washing away the impurities within. Every day was a small transformation. Chen didn't need to learn any battle skills. He wholeheartedly focused on improving his strength. He didn't want to waste a single second. In just 2 days, Chen had refined all 2,500 years old spirit herbs. If this speed were to spread, it would be shocking. During this period of time, he had gone all out, squeezing out all of his potential. Fortunately, his heart was also very strong. It was like a bottomless pit, devouring all the spirit herbs' energy and rapidly feeding back even more pure energy. Chen's body rumbled all day long, like sand being washed away by waves, over and over again. The impurities in his body were removed. Chen's body was moving towards a pure Xiantian body. When he had swallowed the snake gall to break through to the middle 9th level, he was also moving towards the late 9th level. After refining all the energy, Chen's strength had already reached the peak of the 9th level. He was only 1 step away from the 10th level. 2 days later, there was a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Chen opened his eyes. He was very dissatisfied that his cultivation was disturbed. "It's me." A low voice sounded. It was Miao Kong. Chen opened the door and Miao Kong flashed in. "The things you wanted, I've already prepared them for you." It really wasn't easy. Miao Kong walked towards the wooden table as soon as he came in, and then took out a porcelain bottle from his bulging bosom. "How many did you get?" Seeing those porcelain bottles, Chen's eyes lit up. When he had returned that day, he had asked Miao Kong to exchange some true Qi-Dan for him. After all, he had a conflict with Luo Men. Although he had a lot of contribution points, it was inevitable that Luo Men would find trouble with him. Chen didn't care about contribution points, but he cared about time. Now he didn't have much time left. When I went to exchange, Luo Men actually didn't let me. Thanks to senior sister Su Mingyao's help, she found some friends and exchanged them for these. She told me to tell you to use them first. After a few days, there will be more true Qi-Dan for you. One by one, the porcelain bottles were placed on the table by Miao Kong. Chen's eyes swept over, and he had already determined the quantity. There were a total of 20 bottles. Each bottle had 10 true Qi-Dan, So 20 bottles added up to 200 true qi dan. This was a huge number. One must know that a year ago, Zichen couldn't even take out a single true qi dan. For a 500-year-old spirit herb, Zhao Ken had sold him out. But only a year had passed, and Zichen had obtained 200 true qi dan. The number of 500-year-old spirit herbs he had swallowed had already exceeded 50. "Thank you," Zichen gratefully said. After swallowing all the spirit herbs, what he needed the most now was true qi dan. 200 true qi dan were enough for him to refine for several days. Before leaving, Miao Kong patted Zichen's shoulder. "When a cultivator cultivates, they must follow the rules. Haste makes waste. The speed at which you refine spirit medicines is very fast, but if you refine too many, be careful not to suffer a backlash." Before leaving, Miao Kong patted Zichen on the shoulder. Zichen nodded, indicating that he understood. "You have to be careful. Recently, the sect has spread the news that Chen Feng wants to deal with you." Miao Kong finally left. "Chen Feng, you have repeatedly caused trouble for me. One day, I will make you regret it." Inside the room, Zichen's eyes instantly turned cold. At the bedside, 20 bottles of true qi dan were lined up in a row. Zichen sat cross-legged and calmed his mind. He directly opened a bottle of true qi dan, and as if he was eating candy, he instantly swallowed the 10 true qi dan. The true qi dan melted in his mouth, turning into a cool and refreshing feeling that flowed into his stomach. Then a powerful and pure energy gushed out and rushed into Zichen's body. The peak of the 9th level of true qi dan had not broken through. Zichen was somewhat anxious. After waiting for several bottles of true qi dan to be refined, he still had not broken through. Instead, his body had become even stronger. His blood and qi was extremely vigorous. Once it erupted, it was like a peak of the 10th level vicious beast, surging violently. However, it still had not reached the limit that Zichen could understand. The peak of the 10th level of true qi dan was still not perfect. Every time he cultivated, his body would undergo a transformation, and it was transforming every day. On the 3rd day, Zichen had already refined 5 bottles of true qi dan. There were still 15 bottles that he had not refined. Time was of the essence. Zichen did not want to waste a single second. He opened his eyes, picked up the true qi dan, and prepared to refine them again. But suddenly, footsteps sounded from outside. With his strength becoming stronger, Zichen's perception naturally became stronger. Even if it was very light footsteps, Zichen could still perceive them. Then there was a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Zichen asked in a cold voice. From the sound of the footsteps, he could already tell that it was 2 people. Therefore, it could not be Miao Kong. Although the footsteps were very light, there was a kind of heavy feeling. There was no sense of lightness. Obviously, it was not Su Mengyao or Lin Shui. "Zichen, you are suspected of killing a fellow disciple. The punishment hall invites you in." A cold voice sounded from outside the door. "Punishment hall." Zichen's complexion changed. He did not think that the other side would act so quickly. It had only been 3 days, and they already wanted to make a move on him. Punishment Hall was in charge of the punishment of the Nimbus martial ancestor. They had always acted impartially and had never practiced favoritism. In the past, they had even beheaded several core disciples who had committed serious crimes. It was said that the Hall Master of Punishment Hall was a stubborn old man. He abhorred evil as if it was his own personal enemy. He hated heartless people the most. "Do you want to come out by yourself, or do you want us to invite you in?" A cold voice sounded from outside the door again. "I'll go out." Zichen put the Zhen Qi Dan under the blanket, and then walked towards the door with an indifferent face. As the door opened, Zichen saw the 2 middle-aged men outside the door. His pupils instantly shrank. They were wearing red clothes. Although they were not angry, they were imposing. Although their aura was restrained, there was still a chilling aura coming from them. Red-clothed elder, Xiantian stage. Zichen was shocked. He never thought that the punishment hall would actually send out 2 Xiantian stage elders. Obviously, they had already heard of the speculation about Zichen's strength. They were afraid that they would not be able to bring back a 10th stage Jin, Qi stage Zichen. So they directly sent out 2 elders. Let's go. The 2 looked cold and serious, like executioners of the mortal world. I can't find the way. I hope that the 2 elders can lead the way, Zichen said awkwardly. Although Zichen had been in the inner sect for a year, he had never been to the Nimbus martial ancestor. Therefore, he had only heard of the punishment hall, but did not know where it was. Humph. The 2 snorted coldly. Then, one in front and one behind, they sandwiched Zichen in the middle and walked towards the punishment hall. Along the way, they met many cultivators. Look, that's Zichen. Why is Zichen with 2 elders? And they are even elders of the punishment hall? The punishment hall elders had a chilling aura around them. It was very easy to recognize them. You don't even know this. You're so stupid. The sect has already been abuzz with the news that Zichen colluded with others in the spiritual herbal garden and killed many disciples of the Nimbus martial ancestor. Even the 10 inner disciples were killed. What? So vicious? He killed the 10 disciples of the inner sect? Is Zichen that strong? Of course, he is very strong. It is said that he even killed a Xiantian stage beast and obtained a 1,000-year-old spiritual herb. However, he selfishly kept it and caused the sect to lose the bet. Sigh, that's too selfish. Chapter 74. The punishment hall was located at the top of a mountain. It was 3 floors high and was blood-red in color. It was emitting a dense aura of killing intent. It was unknown whether it was because the killing intent was too heavy, but this place was barren and no vegetation could grow. There was once a disciple who felt that this place was desolate and tried to move some flowers and plants, but they withered after a few days. They tried again and again, but in the end, they could only accept their fate. Since then, the killing intent here had become even thicker. Some disciples were even unwilling to come close to this place. Under the guidance of the 2 elders, Zichen slowly walked up the stone steps. The merciless killing intent assaulted his face, causing Zichen to involuntarily shiver. This was the only punishment hall of the Nimbus martial ancestor. Even if the elders made a mistake, they would be punished here. The 2 elders did not speak until they brought Zichen to the center of the hall. The main hall was 3 stories high, but it was very spacious. It looked as if it was drenched in blood. The killing intent was like a sharp blade cutting through Zichen's will. This was a punishment hall. Some of the more timid disciples who made mistakes could not bear the killing intent and would admit to their mistakes before they could be questioned. However, Zichen did not make a mistake, so he did not think he could admit to it. Walking into the hall, there were already dozens of people gathered here. As his gaze swept across, Zichen saw many familiar faces. Among them were Luo men, Wang Meng, and many people who survived the spiritual herbal garden. However, the ones he was familiar with, Su Mengyao, Lin Shui, and Miao Kong, were not here. Zichen, are you guilty? Suddenly, a cold voice rang out, interrupting Zichen's sweeping gaze. At the top of the hall sat an old man. He was as thin as a match, with only a few strands of white hair remaining. His eyes were deeply sunken into his eye sockets, and his skin was full of wrinkles like chicken skin. This should be the hall master. I didn't expect to alarm him. Zichen thought to himself. He was shocked by the hall master's appearance. The hall master was dressed in black, sitting at the top of the hall like a huge black hole. He looked more like a malicious spirit that accidentally broke out of the netherworld, causing fear to rise in people's hearts. Zichen doesn't know. Zichen took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. Colluding with an outer sect disciple to kill a fellow disciple, and you still don't know your crime. The palace master's voice was cold and indifferent, but he did not oppress them with his aura. The murderous intent in his tone made them tremble in fear. Hall Master, that day the 10 disciples of the inner sect were ordered by someone to work together to kill me. If it weren't for my quick wits, I'm afraid I would have died long ago. Killing them was purely an act of self-defense. Zichen was neither servile nor overbearing. Rays of silver light appeared around him as he resisted the Hall Master's murderous aura. So you admit it. The Palace Master's voice turned cold. Zichen raised his head and stared at the Hall Master, who looked like a ghost, and said, "It is rumored that the Punishment Hall Master abhors evil as if it were an enemy, and has once beheaded several core disciples who had committed serious offenses. If the Hall Master insists on asking this question today, Zichen will admit his guilt, but I will absolutely not accept it." Zichen, what do you have to say? I saw you kill Su Yan with my own eyes. How dare you quibble? That's right. You even stole our spiritual herbs. You even killed Luo Mu and the others. Just as Zichen's voice faded, a disciple beside him could not help but chime in. Zichen, you don't need to quibble. We've already investigated the matter. Today is the day you die. Chen Feng also walked out and coldly said. Zichen did not even look at them. His calm gaze was fixed on the Hall Master as he said, Hall Master, it is true that I killed the 9 disciples, but Su Yan did not die by my hands. He died in the mouth of a Xiantian giant python. Hundreds of people saw it with their own eyes. They are obviously slandering me. At this point, Zichen did not care anymore. He directly said, the 10 disciples of the inner sect relied on Chen Feng's support to commit all kinds of crimes. That day, the 10 disciples actually wanted to kill me alone. They were truly shameless. Moreover, when they attacked, they said that Chen Feng was jealous of my great talent and was afraid that I would be a threat to him. So he arranged for them to attack me. They also said that after I died and turned into a ghost, I should not look for them but Chen Feng. I was lucky and survived in the end. But I want to ask Hall Master, if I had died that day, would there be anyone who would seek justice for me? Zichen raised his head, his voice loud and clear. Bullshit. You're spouting nonsense and slandering others. You think I'm jealous of your talent? What kind of talent do you have? Chen Feng said angrily. Zichen looked at Chen Feng with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Su Yan died in the mouth of the giant python, and there were hundreds of people who saw it, but you said that I was the one who killed him. If you can believe such lies, why can't I believe what I heard with my own ears? The 10 disciples of the inner sect have no enmity with me. Why would they want to kill me and even put a bounty on my head in the spiritual herbal garden? I reached Xiantian Stage 9 from Xiantian Stage 5 in just 1 year. What kind of talent do you think I have? If I don't have talent, then what are you? Zichen responded coldly, mocking indifferently. Gasps could be heard all around. Only now did everyone remember that Zichen was still a little fellow in the 5th layer of true energy a year ago. But after a year, he was already standing at the peak of the true energy realm, becoming the number 1 person below the Xiantian realm. Chen Feng naturally didn't have Zichen's talent back then. Zichen's eyes turned cold as he said, if you want to kill someone, then you have to be prepared to be killed. They have evil intentions, so they deserve to die. You're talking nonsense. I hope the Hall Master will uphold justice. There are dozens of people here who can testify against Zichen. As for being jealous of his talent, it's just a rumor. As a Xiantian stage warrior, why would I care about a Xiantian stage warrior? Chen Feng was furious. He turned to the Hall Master and bowed, asking for justice. They're just a bunch of despicable people who only talk about justice. If we can believe their words, we might as well find a bunch of animals. Although animals don't know how to speak, they definitely won't do things that go against their will, Zichen said coldly. For today's matter, he had to show a strong attitude. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any chance. The Hall Master glanced down and didn't say a word. Zichen, you don't need to quibble. We all know what kind of person you are. You colluded with people from the outer sect to kill the 10 disciples of the inner sect in order to steal the elixirs. That's right. You killed a lot of disciples in the valley. Did they also want to kill you? You've been quibbling all this time? You're vicious and merciless. Not only did you steal our elixirs, but you also wanted to silence us. If we didn't run fast enough, we would have died in your hands already. We wouldn't be able to testify against you here. You're just a devil in a mask of kindness. The Nimbus martial ancestor is really a misfortune for the sect to have a piece of trash like you. The others all spoke, wanting to kill Zichin. Their words were vicious. Zichin, you keep saying that you only killed people to protect yourself. Do you have any witnesses? You personally killed so many disciples in the valley. Was that also self-defense? The hall master suddenly spoke, his cold eyes looking at Zichin. Zichin felt a wave of killing intent rushing towards him. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. The silver light around his body showed signs of dissipating. He was shocked. The hall master's strength was indeed terrifying. Hall master, he doesn't have any witnesses. What we said is the truth. In front of the truth, no one will defend him. We're standing on the side of justice. A disciple spoke. If you don't have any witnesses who can prove that what you said is true, do you think I should believe them or your one-sided story? The hall master asked coldly. The disciples sneered, as if they could already see the scene of the hall master personally killing Zichin. Humph! Chen Feng coldly snorted and retreated. The scene was powerless against Zichin. Moreover, the hall master was famous for killing people without batting an eye. Once he determined that Zichin was a villain, he would definitely kill him on the spot. I can testify for him. Suddenly, a clear and cold voice sounded from outside the hall. I can also testify that Zichin is innocent. Another clear voice sounded. Footsteps sounded, and 2 beautiful figures appeared. Su Mengyao was dressed in white. She had a slender figure, and her beautiful face looked straight at Zichin in the hall. Lin Shue's legs were straight, and her skin was like jade. Her jade feet stepped on the ground, making clattering sounds. It's you guys? Seeing Lin Shue and Su Mengyao, Qin Feng's face changed. He didn't understand why the 2 would appear. He had already arranged for people to restrain them. If it's not us, then who is it? Don't tell me it's those trash you sent. Qin Feng, I used to think that you were a petty person with a good heart, but I didn't expect you to be so despicable. Zichin had no enmity with you, but you tried to kill him time and time again. This is the actions of a despicable person. It is the misfortune of the Nimbus martial ancestor that a person like you is the Nimbus martial ancestor's sect master. Su Mengyao said coldly as soon as she came up. You. Chen Feng was furious, and his face was very ugly. This was the first time Su Mengyao spoke to him in such a tone. You are simply a despicable person. Lin Shue also said coldly, in the spiritual herbal garden, you ordered the 10 inner disciples to kill Zichin, and now you found a bunch of despicable people like you to testify. You are all jackals of the same tribe. The sudden appearance of these 2 people was out of everyone's expectations. Everyone looked at each other and wanted to refute. Don't speak. I feel disgusted just by hearing your voices. You are using righteousness as an excuse to do shady things. Su Mingyao's words made everyone speechless. In the spiritual herbal garden, if it wasn't for Zichin, you would have died many times. Now you are trying to harm him. You are a bunch of heartless people. Lin Shue also scolded. No one said a word, and they didn't know how to refute. The Nimbus martial ancestor is a sect, and it has its rules. This is not your home, and you can't do whatever you want. The punishment palace is the most sacred and just place of the Nimbus martial ancestor. You will be severely punished for lying here. Su Mingyao's voice was cold, and her words made everyone's heart tremble. Some of the more timid people's faces changed. Several elders have died here. You are on your own now. Su Mengyao warned again. Everyone lowered their heads and stopped talking. Turning her head, Su Mengyao looked at the palace leader and said with a smile, "Palace leader, I'm sure you know what's right and wrong." The palace leader's face trembled, and he said coldly, "Someone, take them away and interrogate them. If they are lying, execute them immediately." The palace leader's voice was cold, and a murderous aura was emitted. At that moment, the entire palace felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. The murderous aura spread out, as if the god of death had arrived. The surviving disciples were all despicable and cowardly. A few of them even fell to the ground, their faces filled with fear. They crawled to the center of the hall and cried, "Palace master, please spare me. I was bewitched by Qin Feng and was momentarily blinded by greed. That's why I slandered Ziqin. Ziqin, please forgive us. We are innocent. We were ordered by Qin Feng." Chapter 75. More than 20 disciples knelt on the ground and kowtowed continuously. There was no need to interrogate them, as they confessed everything. The reward of the 10 inner disciples and Qin Feng's promise. 2 days ago, Qin Feng had found them and promised that if they identified Ziqin as the culprit, the contribution points they would receive would be doubled. All of them knelt on the ground and begged for mercy, saying everything they could. They even wanted to reveal all the dirty things that Qin Feng had done. You're talking nonsense." Qin Feng's face turned pale. He initially thought that these people were timid and easy to use. However, he did not expect them to be a double-edged sword and hurt him. He kept backing off, trying to distance himself from these people. "Senior brother Qin Feng, save us. We did everything according to your instructions." "Yeah, Senior brother Qin Feng, just admit it. Save us, we don't want to die. Senior brother Qin Feng, you tried to kill Ziqin. You've already done it, why don't you admit it? Don't tell me you don't care about our lives, and just watch us die. Senior brother Qin Feng, just admit it, we don't want to die." The crowd kept crying as they crawled toward Qin Feng. "You don't want to die, neither do I." Qin Feng kept backing off, putting some distance between him and the crowd, and said furiously, "Get out of my sight." When they reached the edge of the stairs, Qin Feng had nowhere else to go. His face turned pale as he tried to defend himself, trying to distance himself from them. At this moment, the malicious spirit hall master said coldly, "Men, drag these people out. Cripple their cultivation and chase them out of the Nimbus martial ancestor." "Ah, no, don't cripple us. We've already told you the truth. It was Qin Feng who wanted to kill Ziqin. We were only instructed. Why do you have to cripple our cultivation? Qin Feng's situation is worse than ours. He's the mastermind. If we're crippled, does that mean Qin Feng is going to die? Qin Feng, you'll die a horrible death. We won't let you go even if we become ghosts. Qin Feng, you evil bastard. You'll get your retribution one day." The wailing and howling disciples were pulled away by several red-robed elders. They could still hear those vicious curses. After a long time, those voices disappeared. The floor of the main hall was glossy and shiny, and there were many bloodstains on it. This was caused by the people who had knocked their heads on the ground. Ziqin didn't say a word. Su Mengyao and Shui Lin were standing on his left and right. Their mouths were slightly tilted, looking like the lofty winners. Beside him was Qin Feng, whose face was covered in cold sweat. At this moment he was at a complete loss. The hall master glanced at Qin Feng before shifting his gaze to the other side. "First elder, how do you think we should resolve this matter?" After a moment of silence in the hall, a voice came from the side of the hall. "Temple Master, you did a good job in resolving the matter. Those disciples were simply too outrageous. They actually dared to slander a genius. Crippling his cultivation and expelling him from the sect is not excessive at all. On the contrary, Ziqin nearly slandered him. You must compensate him well." Great Elder walked out from the side. He was dressed in a large red robe, his back perfectly straight, full of vigor. Oh, great elder's words are reasonable. The corner of the hall master's mouth twitched again, as if he was smiling. Just like great elder, he ignored Chin Feng and shifted his gaze to the other side. Do you have anything else to say? At this moment, other than Zi Chen's group, there were two other people in the main hall. One was Wang Meng and the other was Luo Men. Reporting to Temple Master, Zi Chen killed my big brother and his friends. A total of 6 people. This is an indisputable fact. I dare to use my head to guarantee it. I hope Temple Master will handle this matter impartially. Wang Meng took 2 steps forward and walked to the center of the main hall. He knelt on the ground and pressed his head deeply against the smooth floor. Zi Chen, is what he said true? The hall master asked again, his voice still very cold. Reporting to Temple Master, Wang Xiong and the others did indeed die at my hands. At that time, I was at the 6th stage of the true Qi stage. I did everything to protect myself. Zi Chen didn't hide anything. He recounted the events of that day in detail. He even mentioned the matter of the 500-year-old spirit herb and the matter of the dung being thrown at him. He spoke for a full 15 minutes before stopping. He only spoke the truth without adding any details. Zi Chen didn't indiscriminately kill the innocent. That day, I didn't kill that dung-throwing disciple. But when he returned, he disappeared without a trace. Then Wang Xiong and the others came looking for me. Unfortunately, the only witness was gone. Zi Chen sighed. He then glanced at Wang Meng. The latter was currently trembling uncontrollably. Su Mengyao secretly told Zi Chen not to hide anything and to speak the truth. Only then did Zi Chen not have any misgivings and speak the truth. The temple master sat high up in the main hall, looking down at Wang Meng expressionlessly. After hearing Zi Chen's words, he waved his hand and said, "Expel him from the sect." This time, before Wang Meng could even beg for mercy, he felt a powerful force directly send him flying. "Mercy, it's Qin!" Wang Meng's fierce cry rang out outside the main hall, but before he could finish, his voice disappeared. The temple master is truly benevolent. This kind of scum should be executed. The first elder withdrew his sleeve and said indifferently, "Previously, Wang Meng flying backwards was his doing. What about you?" The temple master looked at Luo Men. The latter's heart trembled, but after thinking about it, he didn't kill anyone, nor did he do anything evil. Therefore, he wasn't afraid. He clenched his teeth and said, "Temple Master, Zi Chen stole my first-rate battle skill, Misty Steps, causing me to be punished. I hope the Temple Master can make the decision to break Zi Chen's limbs, cripple his cultivation, and throw him out of the sect." This was the rule of the Nimbus martial ancestor. Even stealing had to be punished. Chun Feng had long planned for these 3 things to happen one after another. He could definitely kill Zi Chen, but he never expected that the first 2 things would be resolved so easily. Moreover, he was in a dangerous situation. The current situation was very unfavorable for Chin Feng. Although the first elder was present and deliberately ignored him, Chin Feng wasn't naive enough to believe that the temple master, who was like a ghost, would let him go. Zi Chen, did such a thing happen? The temple master looked down at Zi Chen. Although his tone was cold, there was no killing intent in it. No. Zi Chen shook his head and denied. "You're lying. I went to the martial arts pavilion to check. You never received the Misty Steps, and you don't have enough contribution points to exchange for it. Then, tell me, how did you get the Misty Steps?" Luo Men's voice was shrill and aggressive. "Don't tell me that Su Mengyao gave it to you. During this period, no one received the Misty Steps. You knowing the Misty Steps can only mean one thing. You stole my first-rate battle skill." Chun Feng finally raised his head. 3 reasons to kill Zi Chen, and finally one of them worked. From Luo Men's tone, this matter was already in the bag. I didn't give him any battle skill. Even I don't know the misty steps. Su Mengyao suddenly said. Her eyes were calm, and her beautiful eyes were moving. Haha, Ziqin, what else do you have to say? According to the rules of the Nimbus martial ancestor, stealing is punishable by breaking all 4 limbs and crippling one's cultivation. Luo Men laughed sinisterly, as if victory was already in his grasp. Ziqin, no matter how much of a genius you are, stealing is a crime. The punishment hall will not tolerate it. The great elder also said coldly, Ziqin, give me an explanation. The temple master stared at Ziqin, reporting to the temple master this matter. Ziqin was very hesitant. Speak, the temple master said coldly. I really don't have enough contribution points to exchange for the misty steps, and no one gave me this movement skill. Ziqin said truthfully, Haha, then you admit to stealing. Temple master, please make your move. Luo Men laughed loudly. Chun Feng also sneered, thinking that he would not be able to kill him this time. The great elder was also waiting to watch a good show. Ziqin, today you have entered the punishment hall. There is no road to heaven and no door to hell. You will die without a doubt. Luo Men was a little carried away and laughed wildly. Are you an idiot? Ziqin looked at Luo Men with disdain. What, you still want to quibble? Idiot. Ziqin rolled his eyes and said, I don't have contribution points to exchange for, and no one gave it to me. Do you think I stole this movement skill? If you didn't steal it, then what? Did you pick it up? Luo Men said coldly. I didn't pick it up. To be precise, I stole it. Ziqin admitted. Before Luo Men could laugh, he said, But I didn't steal it from you, Luo Men. I stole it from the martial arts pavilion. What do you mean? Everyone was stunned. The martial arts pavilion had never lost anything. So how could Ziqin have stolen it? Humph. Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully. Ziqin snorted coldly. He pointed 2 fingers at Luo Men. Swoosh! With a flash of silver light, Ziqin was already in front of Luo Men. His fingers were pointed at Luo Men's throat, fast as a ghost. Do you see what this is? Ziqin retracted his 2 fingers and looked at the pale Luo Men. There was a hint of ridicule in his eyes. This is the flowing light sword art. How did you learn it? Luo Men's expression changed. In that instant, if Ziqin had attacked even a little bit more, his life would have been gone. Yes, I stole it from the martial arts pavilion. Ziqin nodded and admitted. Before Luo Men could understand, he heard a sigh of admiration. Every person can only enter the martial arts pavilion once a week. Every time, you can only enter for a short 2 hours. You can actually learn 2 battle skills and comprehend the essence of true intent in such a short time. This talent is indeed extraordinary. What? How is this possible? He can actually steal battle skills from the martial arts pavilion? At this moment, everyone's expression changed. Only Su Mengyao and Lin Shui were still smiling. Luo Men's face was ashen. If Ziqin only knew the misty steps, it could be explained. But now he also knew the flowing light sword art and comprehended the essence of true intent. Luo Men's previous reason did not make sense. This is impossible. How can there be a genius in this world who has a photographic memory of a battle skill? This is impossible. Footwork battle skills are the most difficult to learn. How can he remember it with a single glance? The great elder lost his composure. The potential that Ziqin had shown before was already very great. Within a year, he had broken through from True Qi level 5 to True Qi level 9. This was something that the great elder could not accept. But now, Ziqin had shown another ability, which made it even harder for the great elder to accept. Chun Feng's face was also ashen. Now, Ziqin's potential really made him jealous. Great elder, there are all kinds of strange things in this world. Only this can prove that Ziqin is a genius. Otherwise, why would Qin Feng be jealous? Su Mengyao laughed. This is impossible. The great elder still could not believe it. Chapter 76. Luo Men, you framed Zichin. This is an unforgivable crime. You are now relieved of your position in the contribution pavilion. The hall master sat high up in the hall and announced Luo Men's punishment. There were 3 groups of people who wanted to kill Zichin. The first group had their cultivation crippled and were expelled from the sect. Wang Meng was also expelled from the sect, and Luo Men was relieved of his position. All 3 groups of people were punished. There seemed to be many things that needed to be investigated. The hall master waved his hand. Luo Men did not dare to say anything and left dejectedly. He had tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. A position full of benefits was gone just like that. Since the hall master had spoken, no matter how capable his uncle was, he would not dare to take him back. There were only a few people left in the spacious hall. The hall master's gaze landed on Chen Feng once again. He said coldly, "Chen Feng, do you know your crime?" His voice was cold and a murderous aura appeared. Chen Feng's heart trembled. He did not dare to speak and looked at the first elder for help. The first elder was someone who had killed core disciples and elders. He was impartial and impartial. If he said anything wrong, he would not be able to keep his life. The first elder coughed softly and said, "Chen Feng was also bewitched by a villain. He was wronged." The first elder's face was not red, nor was he panting. His tone was calm and reasonable. "Go to the disciplinary hall and face the wall for half a year. When the sect master returns, I will report your evil deeds and let him decide. What have you done to a dignified Nimbus martial ancestor, bringing a bunch of villains to pretend to be righteous?" Humph. Chen Feng's face was ashen. The disciplinary hall was a prison with an extremely harsh environment. It was said that there was no sunlight all year round, and it was extremely gloomy. The murderous aura there was far stronger than here. Many people could not stand the aura of the disciplinary hall and committed suicide. Therefore, the Yin aura there was extremely heavy. It was said that one could hear the cries of ghosts at night. "Hall master, can you give me some face and pardon Chen Feng's punishment?" The first elder stood at the side and transmitted his voice. The hall master did not even turn his head. He was impartial and said coldly, "Chen Feng is sentenced to face the wall for 1 year. You." The great elder roared furiously, "Great elder, respect is not given by others. It is earned by oneself. Chen Feng did such a despicable thing. I did not kill him on the spot and let the sect leader make the decision. This is already taking into account that you have contributed a lot to the Nimbus martial ancestor. Don't make a mistake." The palace leader's expression did not change, but his tone was cold. "Palace master, have you made up your mind?" The great elder's tone was sinister. "Humph, are you threatening me? Men, take Chen Feng away. No one is allowed to visit him. If anyone refuses to comply and barges into the punishment hall, kill Chen Feng on the spot." The hall master glared coldly. As his voice faded, killing intent filled the hall. Chen Feng's legs trembled, and he almost collapsed to the ground. His expression had long since turned ashen. Earlier, he was still thinking that the Grand Elder would use his connections to get him out of here. But now, once he forced his way in, his life would be in danger. "Good, very good. The Temple Master is indeed impartial. I have learned a lot today. Farewell." With a cold snort, the Grand Elder flicked his sleeve and left. A moment later, Chen Feng was also taken away. After Chen Feng was taken away and the Grand Elder left, only the Palace Master, Zichin, and the other 2 were left. The Palace Master's gaze landed on Zichin. "Little guy, not bad. I have high hopes for you." The punishment hall master praised. This was probably the first time in his life that he had ever praised someone in such a manner. Even Chen Feng, the #1 expert of the Nimbus martial ancestor, had never been praised in such a manner before. Palace Master is too kind. Today, seeing the Palace Master's unyielding and impartial side, it is indeed the great fortune of the Nimbus martial ancestor. Zi-Chen's eyes were filled with admiration. I know what happened to you. It's not your fault. As for Chun Feng and the others, they were too much. Today, I only taught them a small lesson. The Palace Master's tone softened. Palace Master knows? Zi-Chun was stunned. Of course. What kind of person is Uncle Li? What wouldn't he know? Su Mengyao chuckled. You little girl, you don't have to flatter me. Even if you didn't tell me, I would have investigated this matter. The muscles on Palace Master Li's face twitched as a smile appeared on his face. His tone was even gentler, and there was even some affection in it. It's Uncle Li who is so perceptive. Chun Feng is really a despicable person. And those people before, they are really... Seemingly recalling the scene in the spiritual herbal garden, Su Mingyao's face was filled with anger. The group continued to chat for a while. Zi-Chun was dumbfounded as he watched the Palace Master, who was as decisive as a ferocious ghost, turn into a kind elder in an instant. The way he looked at Su Mengyao was more like a father looking at his daughter. What kind of identity does this Su Mengyao have? Zi-Chen was shocked. Even the Palace Master was so nice to her. This Zi-Chen must die. He actually has a photographic memory. His talent is really frightening. In just 1 year, without the help of any resources, he was able to break through to such a level. This is a huge threat to Feng. Walking out of the punishment hall, the Grand Elder's eyes were filled with killing intent. This old thing actually praised him so much. Is he going to take him as a disciple? If so, he will be a real threat to Feng. Hearing the praise for Zi-Chen in the hall, the killing intent in the Grand Elder's eyes intensified. Walking down the stone steps, the more the Grand Elder thought about it, the more he felt that Zi-Chen should be killed. Kill! He must be killed to prevent future troubles. The Grand Elder suddenly stopped. His figure flashed and turned into a puff of green smoke, disappearing. After chatting with the Palace Master for a while, Zi-Chen and the other two left. Although he was very confused, Zi-Chen didn't ask about Su Mingyao's identity. He just chatted with Xuelin nonstop. But most of the time it was Xuelin talking while Zi-Chen listened. The three of them walked out of the hall and walked down the stone steps. Zi-Chen, the inner disciple assessment is about to begin. Those with true energy stage 9 are eligible to participate. Have you registered? Su Mengyao asked. Not yet. Zi-Chen shook his head and said, I've been training all this time and didn't have time to worry about other things. But this time, Chun Feng is punished and has to face the wall. I have plenty of time, so I can register. Yes, entering the core, you can use the sect's resources freely. This is the dream of all the Nimbus martial ancestor disciples. Su Mengyao said, the path of cultivation needs to follow the rules. The worst thing is to be impatient. If you increase your strength too quickly, it will lead to instability. This will hinder your future achievements. Miao Kong said this to Zi-Chen before. Thank you. I know what I'm doing. Zi-Chen nodded. Well, I'll give you the rest of the true Qi Dan soon. Su Mengyao didn't say anything else. That's not right. Why haven't we gone back yet? I remember we arrived not long ago. Lin Shui suddenly exclaimed. Her eyes were full of confusion. Zi-Chen and Su Mengyao were chatting and didn't notice this. Now that Lin Shui mentioned it, they realized something was wrong. In front of him was a small stone path with rows of trees on both sides. Behind him was a lonely stone staircase, looking bleak and desolate, but they had walked for a long time. Logically speaking, they should be able to finish walking this path. What's going on? Zi-Chan was confused. It's very strange. Is it a ghost wall? But it's daytime and this is the punishment hall. How can there be such a dense, murderous aura? Lin Shui tilted her head, not understanding. Su Mingyao's beautiful eyes carefully looked around. No matter how she observed, she couldn't find anything strange. The steps were still the same, the trees were still lush. There was nothing strange. Suddenly, Su Mingyao's face changed. Her beautiful face was extremely pale. She said, "Did we accidentally enter the Yuan formation that only the true energy realm can use?" Yuan formation? What's that? It's a mysterious spell that requires true energy to activate. It's called a formation. It said that it has the power to burn the sky and boil the sea. I've only heard about it. I've never seen it. Su Mingyao said. True energy realm, could it be? Zi Chen's heart moved. He said, "Is there any way to leave?" No. Su Mingyao shook her head. Her face was very ugly. She said, "This is the path to the punishment hall. How could there be a Yuan formation? It must be targeted at you. Zi Chen, quickly go back." Swoosh! As soon as she finished speaking, Zi Chen was already a few meters away. He quickly ran towards a stone step behind him. However, at the place where he was standing, a sharp Xiantian sword chi flashed and disappeared. Zi Chen had just run a few dozen meters when he felt a strong force coming from the stone step. Then, a solid fist chi hit Zi Chen's face. Not good. This is Xiantian Jin Chi. Zi Chen's face changed. He clenched his fists. As he crossed his fists, a silver light flashed. It was as if a peak level 10 vicious beast had blocked in front of him. Boom! As the fist chi fell, Zi Chen flew back a dozen meters. His body was churning. "It's you!" Suppressing the blood in his heart, Zi Chen looked at the old man in front of him. His face was cold. Zi Chen knew this person. It was Robin, the one who wanted to kill him in the contribution pavilion. At this time, Robin blocked Zi Chen's path. He looked at him coldly and said with disdain, "If it's not me, who else could it be? I didn't expect a piece of trash like you to be able to dodge 2 of my attacks." The current Zi Chen was no longer the same as before. His physique was close to that of a demonic beast, and his pure Jin Qi was close to level 10. Facing a Xiantian Jin Qi was no longer as embarrassing as before. "Elder Robin, are you here to kill Zi Chen? Have you forgotten the rules of the Nimbus martial ancestor?" Behind Zi Chen, Su Mingyao said coldly, "Little girl, do you have the right to speak here? Today, Zi Chen will definitely die. As for you, you better stand aside obediently. I don't want to accidentally kill you too." Looking at Su Mingyao, Robin said indifferently, "Kill me? Do you have the guts? Even if I lent you 10 guts, you wouldn't dare." Su Mingyao changed her usual indifferent temperament and became very strong. "If I'm not wrong, this should be a Yuan formation. The one maintaining this Yuan formation should be the Great Elder. Why hasn't he come out yet?" Su Mingyao knew too much, and this matter couldn't be exposed. Therefore, Robin didn't waste time and directly attacked Zi Chen. "Chi,